Hey guys, how's it going? I am here with Bret Contreras today on the Atlas podcast. We're here at the Glute Lab in Fort Lauderdale, and we got so many good questions from you guys. So we're going to go through them. I sent the list of questions you guys put in the comments over to Bret to see which ones you want to do, and he's just, let's try to do them all because they're just so good. So I appreciate you guys letting us know what you want to hear from Bret, and we're going to go through them one at a time. So the first question that we received was, can you describe your overall philosophy towards glute training?
Yes. Okay. So we train 3 days a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that's hard to recover from. I'm always reminding people, you can't do 20 sets to failure and then train 2 days later. And I'm always reminding the girls like, hey, because they'll be like, should I do this? No. It's Monday. Wednesday's coming up soon. So training glutes 3 times a week or training legs and glutes 3 times a week, it's challenging. You can do it, but you can't kill yourself. You can't do what the male bodybuilders would do when they train legs 1 day a week, and then you try and do that 3 times a week with drop sets and supersets and super high volume. So 3 times a week we train glutes. I like to think of the rule of thirds, where around a third of your overall training volume, I made this up according to vectors, because I was getting questions all the time. How much of this? How much this? And I'm like, I'd keep going, a third. People would say, well, how many sets should I have, like in the lower rep range, the middle rep range, and the higher rep range? And I'd be like, a third of each. That's not scientific.
Is there any scientific studies that would...
Yeah, there's tons.
That would back...
You do not have to go heavy if you don't want. So if you're trying to equate loads or hypertrophy stimuli, if you go about 6 reps and above, 6 reps is a hard set of 6 is equal to a hard set of 10, which is equal to a hard set of 20, which is equal to a hard set of 30. Those build muscle the same.
So as long as you're pushing to failure at any rep range, then yeah.
But if you go under 6, that's the theory at least. I'm on a study with my friend Brad Schoenfeld. We did 3 sets of 3 squats versus 3 sets of 10. 3 sets of 10 outperformed 3 sets of 3 for muscle growth because it's just not quite enough stimulating reps. So you'd have to do more sets. If you're under 6, you have to do a little more volume, a little more sets to make up for that. So
I have my girls go between 8 to 15, maybe 8 to 20 reps, depending on the exercise, right? And I make them push to failure. So I'm asking them to push to failure at the last rep, right, of the set within that rep range. Because, yeah, as you said too, you're going to get the same amount of hypertrophy in the muscle when you're between that range, right? 8
to 15 is a sweet spot because if you do too many heavy sets of 1 to 3 reps, 1 to 5.
You're just powerlifting.
Well, I like my girls to do that because it's fun. Yes, it's not if all you did was heavy lifting, but sometimes it's fun. When you train legs 3 times a week, if you do hip thrusts 3 times a week, sometimes it's fun I'll say to the girls, throw another plate on, see if you can do it, and they'll get 3. But you know that. But then you post that on social media and everyone rips on you. That did nothing. That doesn't build muscle. But it's fun to do. But those sets beat you up. They beat up your joints. In fact, when you're a researcher and you conduct these studies, you realize the group that goes super heavy, at the end of 8 weeks, they're beat to smithereens. They're like, I feel like I'm going to injure myself. But the high rep group feels fine. The thing with the high rep group, though, is some of them don't return after week 1 because they puke, the nausea. And that gets better, like you learn to buffer that, whatever. But like doing a true set to failure, if you do a set of hack squats to failure, especially if you're doing like breathing reps, that's the worst thing in the world. Yeah, it's hell.
So you're saying that, right? If you want to see how heavy that you can do on one exercise for fun, that's fine. Maybe
but you're pyramiding. You're not just doing 5 sets of 1.
But you're not doing that 3 times a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Overall, for muscle, to gain muscle mass, between, let's say 8 to 15.
Most sets keep between 6 to 15, 8 to 15. That's the kind of the
failing on the last.
That's what most bodybuilders have done. And they've done it that way for a long time because it's the sweet spot, in my opinion. But the true rule of thirds, the main point of the rule of thirds was to say around a third of your volume should be vertical hip extension exercises. These are they've always been the most popular. Your squats, your lunges, your step-ups, your split squats, your RDLs, your good mornings, everything that's loaded with the bar, like on your back or your hands, and you're standing. And these
So
are
would this be for your overall training or just to build your glute max, right?
to build your glutes, but those also work your quads and hammies.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with all the vertical exercises. If all you do is squats and lunges and RDLs, your quads will grow very big. Your hamstrings will grow big. Your erectors will grow big because, well, not if you do mostly single leg work. But my point is, those hammer your quads, but they're great for building glutes. But they beat you up overall. They're systemically fatiguing. We just got
compound exercise.
We just got that new machine right there, the gray one right there. Mm-hmm. And my whole squad, we got it on Wednesday. They all did reverse lunges off of it.
Yeah, I saw.
And that was on Wednesday. On Friday, they were all so beat up. They were so sore on Friday. Every one of them, all my squad had to do a wimpy workout on Friday because they were so beat up. Now, today's Monday. They crushed it. Yeah. They recovered over the weekend. But you see what I'm saying? If all you ever did was heavy lunges, deadlifts to failure, you would be beat up a lot and you'd get injured more frequently. So
you covered a lot of things in that one.
Well, there's two more. Yeah. So then 1/3 should be vertical hip extension. 1/3 should be horizontal hip extension. Those are all your hip thrust variations, but also back extensions because the hardest part is at the top. Kickbacks where you're standing because the hardest part is at the top, at the lockout. Those don't work you at longer muscle lengths as much. You can do more volume with those. They don't beat you up as much. You can recover easily from them. If that's all you did was horizontal hip extension exercises, you could do it 3 times a week, no problem. You don't get very sore from those. And interestingly, there's all this debate about well, actually, we'll get to that later, so I'll wait. Okay. Then the remaining third should be hip abduction movements, lateral movements. So this is your hip, and there's two categories. When you're in the frontal plane, like think of doing a jumping jack, that's frontal plane. When you're in the frontal plane, moving your leg out to the side, that's glute medius. Moving your leg just straight out to the side while standing upright. You actually want to move it like 30 degrees rearward too. But that's how you hit the upper glutes the best. But if you're doing seated hip abduction and leaning forward a lot, then you work more glute max. You put those fibers in a position to carry out that movement. So we always do 2 abduction movements at the end of the workout. And sometimes it's just 2 sets of each. But this adds to I know it adds a lot to their muscle growth. So the end of this, but here's the deal. I have so many toys here. So the end of the workout is either for the horizontal or transverse plane hip abduction. It's either the gluteator or leaning seated hip abduction pulses. The reason we just do pulses is because you can lean further. If you don't make your legs touch, you'll see when the girls' legs touch, they round their back. When they just do the pulses, they can lean forward more. And then the more forward you lean, the more glute max you're working. So we'll finish off each workout with abduction, and they do either gluteator or seated hip abduction pulses, leaning forward. And then they do this machine, we call it the Snow Angel machine. That's
another abduction machine.
It's frontal plane, though. They're straight out. Yeah. But you could also do all the cable standing hip abduction. Ankle weights work well. Bands work well. Bands get a bad rap. And my girls will forget about them. Like, just do band standing hip abduction. And they're like, oh my God, I'm pumped. Bands built great glutes during the quarantine. I had girls build their glutes during the quarantine off partner hip thrust. I said, find someone you can hip thrust.
I saw Massa doing that.
Yeah. Hip thrust someone and then do tons of band work and people saw good results. So that's the rule of thirds. That's my overall philosophy.
So basically, from my understanding, you would split the workout into horizontal, vertical, and then the abduction movements. Yep. So you could work your glute max, right? Your glute med, and then the outer glute too, right?
The vertical work,
yes.
Quads and glutes or hams and glutes.
Yeah.
The horizontal are mostly all glutes.
But the vertical, you're doing glute max too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glute max.
Yes.
And then the abduction is glute, depending, but the frontal plane is glute med.
Yeah, glute med.
And that's,
yeah, so if you want like a fully rounded glute, that's exactly what I make my clients do as well. But let's say some girls, their outer glutes are too overpowering, or even their glute max is too overpowering. Maybe you would change
You can change.
Yeah, you would, depending on where you want to work.
Huge upper glutes and no lower, maybe you don't do any abduction work.
Yeah.
If someone has huge quads and they need to shrink their quads and grow their glutes, then you can't be doing a lot of vertical stuff. You have to eliminate the squats and the lunges. And that's the essence of bikini training. In bodybuilding, you work with your physique and your weaknesses to develop
basically
stability.
with Isa Bikini, right? I was training her in Toronto a couple weeks ago, and she has that issue because her quads are overpowering. So I don't let her do any pressing movements, basically, unless it's like the hip thrust. But I mean, like any pressing movements where your knee is perpendicular, right? So any of the squats, so it sucks because I can't do sumo deads or anything like that, which are great for the glute max and the hamstrings, even though it would be beneficial because I can't incorporate the quads because then it's going to not make her symmetrical. So you need to find exercises that are going to help you with your overall goal. And it sucks because sometimes you're limited.
So it's mostly hip, horizontal, because hip thrusts work the quads, just not nearly as well as squats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In our study, they grew half as much quad as squats did. But
it's still a pressing movement, but your knee isn't going perpendicular at 90
much
degrees.
range, right?
Yeah.
So all the hip thrusts, all the kickbacks, all the back extensions, and you can do stiff-legged deadlifts.
Yeah, those are fine. Yeah.
We do deadlifts off the pit shark. We use the T-bell. We do a lot of different, but
it's rare. It's rare you're in a situation where a girl has too big of hamstrings, so that's not usually a problem. But it's usually the quads that are an issue where you can't, like, even I can't make her do any lunges. I can't make her do anything like that. But that's what it is until her quads maybe shrink a little bit.
And the beginners hear that and they say, "Oh, I'm quad dominant," and they're not. They just it's frustrating.
Yeah. So you answered a few questions in that one question, but I wanted to go back for a second and ask you. So you said that you have your girls train typically 3 times a week, right? And sometimes they don't always go to failure. Would you also recommend maybe 2 times a week, but really pushing to failure even more if they, So let's say you do like a Monday and like a Thursday. So you have like a 3-day difference in between of rest, and you go balls to the wall on Monday, balls to the wall on Thursday, and they're able to recover.
So there's probably a significant portion of the population who would see better results training glutes twice a week. We have no way of knowing, but there are a few studies looking at, so there are genes, God, I just read up on this and I forgot the exact gene, but anyway, if you have a certain gene, you experience much more muscle damage. And then there's also a different gene that helps you recover quicker. So you could have,
it's genetic.
And you know these people who, like, I remember training my friend Hattie Boydell. I could give her so much volume and then wouldn't matter. 2 days later, she's fine, ready to train again. And then they're like me, I feel like I do 4 hard sets for my quads and I'm sore for a week.
It's like a Jake Cutler, right, which is very high volume, and then a Yates, right, Dorian Yates, which trains 3 or 4 times a week, but they still achieve great success in their body.
That's a different topic. What I was talking about was like your genetics, like inherited genetics pertaining to how much muscle damage you receive when you work out and how fast you recover. So some people would probably see better results training twice a week, but what you're talking about is this, some people don't talk about this. I don't like saying intensity because does intensity mean heavier weight or higher effort? So I just say load or effort. So
I would say effort more.
Effort, but NSCA will say intensity is like a percent
on
your percent of 1 rep max, which I don't like that. I like that. When I think if that was an intense workout, that was a hard workout, you pushed hard. So effort versus volume. Let's say you're the type. So when we prescribe someone a workout online and they don't push themselves that hard, and then you say, okay, I'm going to give them 30 sets, they see good results because they don't push themselves hard, so the volume helps. But if they're the type that go to failure and you give them 30 sets for one workout, they're annihilated, and you can't give them 3 days a week. So it's this volume effort scale so if you don't go to failure, you can do more volume. If you do go to absolute failure, and then there's different types of failure, like where you're psyched up. We were at Glute Squad San Diego during the quarantine. We'd have 15 girls, and we'd be doing sumo deadlifts, touch and go. And my girls were doing 315. There was like 3 of my girls repping out with 315 with touch and go. And imagine 15 girls cheering you on, and if you've got your PR song playing in the background, and they're like, come on, and you're bouncing the weight up. It almost feels like a hip thrust when you're doing touch and go sumo deads. And they'd get Ashley, the girl on the mural there in the mirror. She got 18 reps. I think Dominique got 11 reps or something, and another girl got 7 reps, and then they'd be like, then they'd come to me the next week and they'd be like, Coach, I'm still beat up from that workout. You can push yourself so hard on certain exercises when you get advanced to where you're screwed for a whole week. There's studies on eccentric training with muscle damage where there's evidence of damage like a month later still, like an edema and stuff hasn't resided. So you can push yourself too hard. So I don't always recommend going to failure on everything, especially psyched up failure. But then I get annoyed when people say, don't ever go to failure. Like, so if I do rear delts to failure, I'm going to fatigue too much. No. So it's content.
So I have a theory too with the whole failure thing, right? So your body is very smart and it's going to adapt to the environment, right? And the load that you're giving it. So if you come into a gym, right, and you're always doing the same workout all the time, the same amount of reps, the same amount of weight, and you're not pushing yourself past a threshold where your body needs to adapt, why would your body adapt? You need to always be increasing the effort of your workouts because your body's going to adapt to the environment that you give it and the stress you give it. The people that say you don't need to go to failure or 75% is fine, why would your body grow in that environment when it doesn't need to?
So I grew up with that philosophy. The best results I ever saw was when I did HIIT training, 1 set to failure. This was HIIT training, is HIT, stands for high intensity training. It was what Dorian Yates did. 1 set to failure on a handful of exercises. But here's the deal. I had just finished doing 8 years of high volume body part splits. I never learned how to really push it so hard. But then I plateaued. So you can push yourself by setting PRs on 1 set. And we do that here. We're always going for PRs. But
so is that
you can also just do more volume over time.
So the PRs, would you see like a benefit in their overall muscle growth from doing that, or?
No, absolutely. Like, I wish I could make a post on so most of my girls got here in between they start training here between April and October. So they've been training like at most 8 months, but at least 3 months. And if I showed you before and after pictures, but it's all about PRs. Yes, I've got great equipment here, but if they just didn't push themselves hard, but they're moving 405 on the hip thrust.
So in the PRs, though, that they're doing, their form is also good. They're not just throwing the weights around.
Yes, in general, but I always say this too. First, you get the PR, then you make it pretty. So on hip thrust, they're usually good. But like on squats, sometimes they shift a little. Sometimes their knees cave in. So they might round on
injury. Let's say you're doing a PR on like a deadlift, like a standard deadlift or a squat. And let's say the girl's alone and she's hearing this, I got to do the PRs. Like, how would you?
So that's a great question. And that's something that what I will tell you is that when I'm here, the girls don't get hurt because I'm watching them and I say to them, don't squat and deadlift without me. Those are the 2 exercises people hurt themselves so often with, squats and deads. So I say, don't squat and deadlift without me. And I'm watching them. I'm spotting them for their top sets.
Making sure they're not.
When I'm watching them and I'm supervising, they don't hurt themselves. If they go, now that I'm not in San Diego much, now that I'm not in, Kyle, we're doing a podcast, sorry. Now that I'm not in San Diego that much, the girls hurt themselves a lot more often. And it's so frustrating because you don't want them hurting themselves. If you hurt yourself, but I always say to the girls, like, she who lives to train another week, she who trains the most consistent sees the best results. If you hurt yourself, if you're always going 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, you can't make progress. Your muscles won't fire as hard as possible.
Don't go doing PRs in a random gym without proper supervision.
Well, but you can PR on the gluteator. You can PR on hip thrust, the thrust
cable back, whatever. Yeah. You're not going to hurt yourself.
You're not going to hurt, but on squats and deads.
Big compound movement.
And even if you're doing like dumbbell walking lunges, like it's like you got to care more about your form on these things and your joints. And the vertical hip extension exercises, they can cause more damage. So that's a question that I wish I had the secret to, because I'm the secret. I'm a CSCS, a certified strength and conditioning specialist, for 20 years. I've been a CSS for 20 years. I have my PhD. I'm all about biomechanics. So I'm not as strict as some people. I'm not like the guy who thinks you have to have the most perfect, pristine form. But I just, when I'm watching, they don't hurt themselves. When I'm not, when they go train somewhere else, they're always like, Bret, I'm injured. And I go, how? When? How'd you hurt yourself? It was always when I'm not around. So it's frustrating because in that sense, you almost, and I'll be honest, now that I have all these machines here, I'm shifting more towards plate-loaded stuff. And it's funny because I invented strong lifting for my girls, like the 6 big barbell lifts. I've been all about squats, deads, barbell hip thrusts. Now I'm like, we do more hip thrusts off the plate-loaded thrust.
I've noticed that too. Back
more,
your videos before was more like big
more free weights.
movements.
Now it's like the snow angel machine, the gluteator, the seated hip.
That's the official name.
We just start calling it. All these, the cable 45-degree hyper, all these. When we do squats, we do them now off the lever squat machine or the reverse hack squat machine. And it's funny because I'd get a lot of flack from hardcore lifters being like, it's annoying. And then they're like, the squat is everything. The deadlift is everything. Well, we do deadlifts off the hammer strength. They call it the squat lunge machine, but it's really for deadlifts. And you can do them off the pit shark too, the belt squat machine. Yeah. We do deadlifts off that all the time, but this is the deadlift platform. We still use it a lot, but I'm not as hell-bent on that because, again, if I can keep my girls training hard 3 days a week and keep them setting PRs on the hip thrust, and I have them do lunges, but it's off the plate-loaded reverse lunges or Smith machine reverse lunges, but we do tons of step-ups. We have a system that works well because people don't get injured there very often for how heavy they're lifting.
Yeah, so you're trying to find a solution where someone could do that maybe online versus...
And it sucks because I have my Booty by Bret membership and I can't give them Gluteator. How many gyms have the Gluteator?
I've only seen it in maybe 1 or 2 gyms.
Yeah. How many?
It's an amazing machine.
That machine doesn't exist anywhere, the Snow Angel machine, and it's so awesome for the upper glutes. Yeah. And so I have to give more free weight stuff. And hell, I love the free. Sometimes I'm in here and I'm like, God, I've taken my eye off of squat for my own training. I've gotten lax. And I'm like, I haven't been doing deadlifts lately, and it's crazy because
like it's hard. I don't want to do it.
But also, I was doing the hammer strength deadlift, and I'll do Smith machine squats and the lever machine squats, and then I'll test my squats, and I'm just as strong. That lever squat deadlift and then the pit shark deadlifts, it keeps me. But then I test my barbell, and I retain my
similar movement,
it's a
right?
similar movement.
You're still training the same muscles.
And it's funny because powerlifters would say, no, you don't keep your strength. But how many of them, how would they know that?
How are they going?
How
would only doing those 3 lifts, right?
Powerlifters do pure specificity. Yeah. If powerlifters said, I'm going to do Smith machine squats, and they don't put their feet way out in front, they put them underneath, they set up their squat like they do their barbell squat on the Smith machine, and you're doing like deadlift pattern, you'd be amazed at how much strength you
They might actually get stronger too if they do variations of that lift because they would work. Yeah, because they would actually work other supporting muscles.
The research variation has been shown, and also partial. When you do full range and partials, it enhances your muscle growth and your strength.
And a lot of girls, what I do to make them push to failure is they'll push to failure with a full range of motion, and then they'll add intensifiers at the end, like maybe like a isometric hold, or like partial at the top, partial at the bottom. And I feel like that really is going to help them
new stimulus
push. Yes.
So it's funny you bring that up because in the research, a lot of those methods, it's like if training to failure isn't shown to be vastly superior for strength or muscle growth, then training a couple reps shy of failure, then why would advanced techniques where you're going beyond failure be advantageous? But here's the deal. You can do those techniques on certain exercises. And we've learned, for example, that Snow Angel machine. And what I love about my machines here, this Thruster Pro, I have them come up to the top and then I sit on the bar. So they're lowering the weight with me with 250 extra pounds on the bar. So
on the eccentric movement.
On the eccentric motion, they're so much stronger. In the research, you're 30 to 80% stronger on the way down. Yeah. Here, they're like twice as strong on the hip thrust. Okay. So, and I really make them control all the way down into a deep stretch. And then I'll have them do a set of 10 like that with me sitting down on the bar. And then I'll have them do a 5-second hold at the top of the last rep. Things like that doesn't make them overtrain, overreach, whatever you want to call it.
As far as the training to failure thing, like I just believe in it based on logic as well. I'm not even looking at studies, right? With the whole like your body adapting.
Yeah.
Like the human body is advanced and so smart, we don't even realize it, but it's going to adapt to the environment, even based on like evolution. If you look at us like 100,000 years ago, our bodies are very different just because of the environment we're in. And that's how we train too. If you're pushing yourself past where you're comfortable, and we've always seen people in the gym they train for 10 years, they look exactly the same,
Yeah.
right? Because they're not, they reach a plateau or they're comfortable in their training and they don't want to push past that comfort zone, so they don't change.
Yeah, and they think they're doing everything right. And then I've had people like that come to me and they're like, I do everything right, but they don't know how to get stronger over time. And then I train them, and then they'll train with me for 6 months and go, oh my God, I made better progress in the last 6 months than I have the last 3 years.
So I have some girls where I make all my clients send me their training videos just so, because how important it is to coach a bikini athlete. You need to see how they train.
Yep.
They can have the diet in check, the PDs in check, but if they're in the gym and they're not training to failure with proper form, they're not going to really make any advancement in their physique. So I have some girls send it to me, and
By the way, that's such an important thing because most coaches don't
do that. I know, but
they don't do that. And I'm like, how are you?
So I learned this 4 years ago, and it's been one of the reasons as to why I've been able to make so many bikini pros is because I had that aspect of the coaching where I'm checking their training. And yes, it does take more time, but the results of my athletes are much better. And the reason I started doing this was because I realized that like over 50% of the girls that join my team, maybe even higher, don't know how to train to failure. So imagine you're coaching them, they don't make progress. You're like, well, their diet's good. Are they cheating? No. Why are they not growing? You don't know. But you look at their training in the gym and you're like, that's the reason why they're not. So I make every single athlete on my team send me training videos until I approve all of their muscle groups and their intensity and their form. And that's where I've seen a lot bigger results in my coaching.
That's why I started doing, so in San Diego, I was doing glute squad classes, and it was circuit based. And my client, Jade, I remember going, Jade's such a social butterfly. She's just talking up a storm, and she like admitted to me she just loves coming to glute squad because
Community.
she loves the social hour. But I'm like, I was watching her, and she's got such a great physique. And I'm like, I think she could do 10 more reps. She's not even training to a 10 RIR. Like, she could have done 10 more reps on every set she did. So I stopped doing circuits, and I started making them. And it's funny because then I started strong lifting, and her physique just changed radically when I started training for strength. And like I'd have a computer, and I'd have the girls' records on the computer, so they could all see it. So they were like, there was a competition with them, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, Amanda hit this. I'm gonna
But
one up
also the
that."
mentality factor behind it, where it's if you're telling a girl she doesn't say she does 12 reps, and you tell her to do 10 more, she probably can do 10 more. But if they're on their own and no one ever teaches them that skill and being able to, they don't learn it themselves a lot because you don't want to do uncomfortable things.
Well, I think that's some of the benefits of training in an environment like this.
Yeah.
You no longer think that hip thrusting 315 is a big deal because there's so many girls doing 405 and 495. You see Arishna doing squats with 275. You're not going to think your 135 is that strong. You
If they build up,
if you and I trained at like West Side back when Louis was alive, we would be stronger just because we'd be like
environment and
the environment.
Yeah. If you go train, let's say you're a beginner, you go train like at a old person's gyms and everyone's training with 3 pounds everywhere. Maybe you're going to be like, well, this is what we do. And you don't really go past that. So, yeah.
Well, I remember as a coach, I remember 15 years ago, I saw this strength coach, Mike Boyle. He was training an Olympic female hockey team. And like one of the girls did a 45-pound chin-up for 3 reps. And I'd been a coach for a lot of years. I never had...
You're like, I can't even do that.
I never had a woman do a chin-up with 45 pounds for 3 reps. It made me realize, wow, women can do this. When I came out with the hip thrust and people see my girls doing 3-4 plates on the hip thrust, it went, wow, no one would have ever pushed themselves. When my friend Ben Bruno started having people doing heavy single leg work, and he's having videos of them with weighted vests, dumbbells, and you're going, holy shit, that's...
So I've seen you actually post sometimes where you have friends that also they have degrees or whatever, and they've done studies, and you give them credit. And you're like, listen, this is a new technique, good job. This is a smart idea, and because you're always willing to learn, right? And I like that. And if you're always just set in one way and you don't want to take advice from other people,
I'm 47 years old. I feel like I've learned more in my training this last year than ever before.
It's like that.
And so that's why I think...
Do you ever look back and you're like, man, I didn't know anything?
Yes.
Like even 5-10 years ago.
My first ebook, it's embarrassing, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I took it off the market because I'm like, it's embarrassing. But I always say your knowledge is from 3 buckets, like a pie chart with 3 equal portions. And it's training yourself is how would I got that standing hip thrust machine by
you have to
Builder
feel
today.
the movement yourself. Right?
They're like asking me about it. I go, we just got it today. I haven't used it yet. I'll use it tonight. tomorrow I'll know a lot more. I'll be able to advise you, but I haven't even done it yet. How would you know if you don't do?
Exactly.
I do all these same movements that I have my girls do.
I've tried everything. When I suggest exercise, I'm like, I don't actually feel this properly, man. And then I'll have 2 other girls try this. I'll send them videos. Try this. Let me know what you think about it.
Well, you'll see coaches be like, heavy day, standing cable hip abductions for 4 sets of 5. Have you tried 5 reps on a cable hip abduction? It doesn't feel right. That's a higher rep movement.
Yes.
You got to do sets of 12.
You can't go like super far on that. It's done.
No, it's not an exercise to do sets of 5 on. You would know that if you don't try the cable standing hip abductions, the cable kickbacks. I used to scoff at kickbacks. I started doing them, and I actually liked them. But it took me a couple of days to a couple sessions like them because I felt it on this hip flexor because we're so strong with hip extension, but my front hip flexor was weak. The girls don't have that problem. They feel things differently because their proportions are, and they start off light. A power lifter will be like hip thrust. Oh, I saw this guy doing 500 pounds, so I'll do 500 pounds in my very first
power lifters doing hip thrust though.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean.
But so you start off with lightweight, feel it, and then gradually get stronger over time. But when
you have a responsibility to teach other people though, right? Like you want to try things yourself and learn.
Oh yeah.
Even when I used to bodybuild, I tried every PD there is just on myself.
I always think that.
But
if you're gonna prescribe
exactly.
But 1/3 is you're training knowledge from training yourself. 1/3 is you're training knowledge from training other people from all walks of life. And the remaining 1/3 from reading research and talking shop with other coaches.
External resources, yeah. Okay. Can you talk about the anterior pelvic tilt and how it affects your glute growth?
Okay, I've seen a lot of this lately, and how would it affect glute growth? If you think of the pelvis, let's say, like, I used to do a lot of research on pelvic tilt, but say normal humans have 7 degrees of anterior pelvic tilt.
So are you just explaining to the audience because there might be beginners watching this. So what is a pelvic tilt? What is the anterior, posterior pelvic?
Think if you're like posing and you're trying to show off your butt, you're going to arch and you end up tilting the pelvis anteriorly. And then posterior pelvic tilt is if you're trying to squeeze your butt.
The top of the hip thrust, basically, right?
Top of the hip thrust, for example. They call that ugly butt here. They'll be like, if I'm like, do a glute squeeze standing, it doesn't look good. That's how you would have the worst picture of your glutes. But anyway, with regards to anterior and posterior pelvic tilt, there's no research showing that like people with anterior pelvic tilt can't grow their glutes as well as people with posterior pelvic tilt. And I don't see why that would be, because if you're an anterior pelvic tilt, theoretically, you go down to the same depth, you're stretching the glutes a little bit more.
By the way, if you have the anterior pelvic tilt, like your lower back may be a little bit more hard, right? And you might even show your glutes more, right?
Well, naturally, but then there's the topic with movements.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're doing a hip thrust and you move your pelvis. Well, theoretically, because I've heard people saying like the spine shouldn't move and you should perfectly hinge.
Yeah.
And I could talk about this forever because I've researched this so much, but the spine always moves. There's so many studies now. There's probably 15 at this point. Going back 20 years ago, the spine always moves. You can never keep it in neutral. There's studies where someone looks like they're in neutral at the bottom of a deadlift. They look like they're keeping the arch, and they're in 23 degrees of posture of lumbar flexion. When you're at the bottom of a squat or deadlift, you are posterior pelvic tilting and flexing the lumbar spine, even if it looks arched. And there's studies on good mornings, kettlebell swings, squats, deadlifts, gait, sprinting, jumping. The spine moves. It always moves. Now, what one camp will say is you should try to hinge and keep the spine as neutral or rigid as possible and move mostly through the hips. So if you're doing a hip thrust, you keep your torso like this, and you would be looking forward at the bottom, and then you would come up and you'd be looking up at your
spine as straight as you can.
Trying to keep your spine as straight. And there's no research on this. You have different theories. I've been hearing stuff about this. So there's the hinge method and the scoop method. The scoop method, you look forward and you do a combination of hip extension and pelvic tilt. And
Explain what that is, because
I wish I could show it. But anyway, basically, let's say
we can't.
Well, let's say I'm looking.
Show it on this?
We could, yeah.
Okay.
But we'll take some clips afterwards. But let's say you're looking forward and you come up like this. What happens is you end up.
Be the thumbnail.
No. I got that. I deserve that. Yeah. If you're neutral, you would be like this. If you're hinging, the spine, the head, neck, and torso remain in one unit, and they move together. The scoop method is more like from here, and you end up scooping like that. And so your pelvic tilts as you carry out hip extension.
Is this? I can bring it. Take 2 seconds. I can bring the camera there and just show it even without weights. You want to do that or no?
You want to do that right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So the hinge technique would be me trying to keep my head, neck, and spine as one unit, and I would come up like this, and I would look up, and I would push as tall as possible, like this. Okay? So I'll do 2 reps. Looks like this. Okay? And we used to do that. My first invention was this piece over here called the scorcher. That's how we hip thrusted. We didn't know anything about spine biomechanics, so everyone just went as deep as possible and as high as possible. And I'd say go into hip hyperextension because the hips can hyperextend 15 to 20 degrees on average. So when you come up, you want to be as tall as possible, like this. And probably 1 in 4 people would end up developing lower back pain. So this evolved over time. We started doing pelvic tilt hip thrust. We started doing what we called American hip thrust, where you went up and hinged more from here. And then we ended up doing the scoop method. And this came from my friend Ben Bruno. I was like, Ben, I'm trying to do a thumbnail for a blog post, and all of my clients and myself are like this at the top of a hip thrust. We're looking forward. I'm like, why are we doing that? He goes, I coach that. He goes, I have them look at where the wall meets the ceiling, and then they don't hyperextend. So if they look here and do a hip thrust, it prevents lumbar hyperextension. So the whole industry switched to the scoop method. We all started, instead of looking, we basically said, look forward and move from the sternum down. So this was the scoop method. Boom. So why would there be that big of a difference? You feel this all in your glutes right now. I don't feel anywhere else. So what you're doing here is, when you're on the way up, you're not lengthening your spine. Here, with the hinge method, you're using your erectors a little bit. This takes your back out of it. So this eliminated back pain overnight. All the people who had back pain were like, oh my God. So everyone started hip thrusting this way. Then I was doing a seminar with my friend Paul, and a few of his girls are like, Bret, I like the way you taught hip thrust last year more. And I'm like, we didn't need to eliminate the hinge method. We should teach both variations. So sometimes it's good to scoop. Sometimes when I have low back pain, I do scoop method. I'll show you with weight what this looks like. So if I have low back pain, I go like this, I come down, and I just bust out 20 reps like this. Okay? Whereas other times, I might go hinge method and push tall. But honestly, that irritates my low back. You can use either method. Some people will prefer one over the other. But lately I'm hearing a lot of incorrect theories and improper biomechanics pertaining to the scoop method, pertaining to pelvic tilt. When you're set up like this, and you do posterior pelvic tilt, what the other camp is making it seem is that you're going like this. And just like rounding everything like this. It's a blend. So if I come up a little bit higher and I anterior tilt down here, I'm stretching, I'm getting deeper hip flexion. So if I anterior pelvic tilt is similar to hip flexion. When you tilt the pelvis this way, it's the same thing as flexing the hips. So I get a bigger stretch. So if this is as deep as you can go, say you're hip thrusting off a bench or a Smith machine or a thruster pro, and this is as deep as you can go. If I'm in the hinge method, I can come to right here. If in this same depth, see my butt's touching the pad, this is as deep as I can go. If in this same position, I anterior tilt a little bit, I went deeper. That's deeper hip flexion, so that's greater stretch. Now, when you come to the top, right here, you come mostly up, and then here's where you start posterior pelvic tilting a lot. Boom, to right here. You can see I'm still coming up. This is a big range of motion, okay, here to here. But this is all glutes here, all the glutes. I do not feel my abs at all. I don't feel my obliques, and I feel less erector doing this way than doing hinge method, okay? And hinge method, you're pushing tall. What you'll see in videos and pictures of people who are doing pure hinge is they're like this. They're arching the spine too. The people who say the spine isn't moving, it is moving. They're arching. It's hard to not arch. It's hard to just do pure hip extension. Now, which is better for glute growth? We don't know. There are no studies on it.
Should you try them both and see which one fits best for you?
I would say just like, why pick one or the other for everyone? It's like saying what's better with deadlifts, with deadlifts, sumo or conventional, with squats, high bar or low bar, or back and front squats, or you have to have people try things and determine, because I will tell you, my client Amanda right now, my client Julia, they like the scoop better. When they try hinging, they always hurt themselves. And you could say, well, go down in weight and start off with body weight. Body weight's not going to grow their glutes. You can use load, and they can use heavy loads as long as they're scooping. But even when you do scoop, here's what I'll say about this scoop. When you scoop like this, say you do a hard set of 10 to failure, it's just like with deadlifts, you start rounding. With these, you stop scooping quite as much, and you see the chest start coming up a little more. So you really got to watch yourself to watch that the chest doesn't come up, that you stay ribs down. That's characteristic.
What do you say for personal trainers that tell their clients not to incorporate any hip thrusting movements or free bar hip thrust movements because it thickens their waist?
How could it thicken your waist? Well, you'll just say, what is the waist? When I think of the waist, what do you think of?
Lower back, abdominals, obliques.
So I think of obliques first, and then abs, and then low back third. But if you think about the waist from the front view, you don't want to build your obliques. How would this, what works your obliques? Side bending. You have to produce like a lateral lateral spinal flexion moment, or like you have to produce torque in lateral or trunk flexion. I am not flexing that. I'm not using the abs. When you do abdominal exercises and you posterior pelvic tilt, like if I do a leg raise, hanging leg raise where I bring the knees up to my chest and I posterior pelvic tilt, then I'm using my abs. But when you do it on the hip thrust, you're using glute. You're not using your abs.
So let's say from like a bikini athlete, right? Typically their waist is like on a side profile. And some trainers say that the hip thrust is the demon of the big waist because it increases the size of your erectors or your lower back, which if it does, then their waist would typically be bigger, right?
Okay, could this build erectors? Yes, but it's not going to build erectors as efficiently as squats and deadlifts. So if you're saying don't do hip thrusts because it'll build your erectors, and then you're doing squats and deadlifts, you don't make sense. Be consistent. Then you could say, okay, I'm not doing heavy hip thrusts. I'm going to do light hip thrusts. I'm going to do single leg hip thrusts.
But how much is it building your erectors anyways? Is it a noticeable amount? Would it affect your waist?
I don't think. Look at the bikini competitors who do a lot of hip thrusts. The top 10 bikini Olympia, every single one of them is hip thrusting.
Issa Pacini has the smallest waist in the IFBB Pro League.
And she hip thrusts.
And she hip thrust like 6th place on the Smith machine. She's been hip thrusting for 8 years, and her waist remained the smallest.
And the people who say it's building your waist, you can look at the waist, you can look at their waist, and if you look at over the years, it didn't grow. Their waist isn't If they say they stopped hip thrusting and their waist got smaller, it didn't get smaller. And the person didn't stop hip thrusting.
Yeah.
But anyway, that camp who's saying that, she never stopped hip thrusting and her waist did not shrink. You can look at pictures from the year before. Her waist did not shrink. And she never stopped hip thrusting. You can look at video footage from March, April, May, June, July, August, September, and she was hip thrusting. I don't want to name names. But anyway, what I will say is, how could this build the obliques? You can have electrodes. I have an EMG unit. I have a Ayotte from Noraxin. I have an $18,000 EMG unit, and I can put electrodes. Anyone can do this. You can put electrodes on your abs and do a heavy hip thrust, okay? You're not crunching your abs. You're just coming up using your glutes. What you'll get is about 10 to 20% maximum EMG signal from the rectus abdominis, from the obliques. It stays between 10 and 20. Then you go and you do a crunch, a V-up, a sit-up, a side crunch, and it gets to, just with body weight, and it gets to 70%. So how could it possibly, like, if you don't want to build your abs, don't do abdominal movements. If you don't want to build your obliques, don't do oblique movements. But hip thrust can build your abs. It can't build your obliques. It could build some erector, but again, if you're going to say don't hip thrust, then you better not be doing RDLs or any squat variations.
Let's say you're doing like a standard deadlift or something, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have some lower back.
Yeah,
The lower back is going to be incorporated a bit, or let's say any lunging move or any type of squatting movement, your lower back is going to be incorporated. So
yeah,
just demonizing one movement over everything else doesn't make any sense. Which glute exercises would you say? Because I'm even thinking like kickbacks, right? You're still going to have some lower back.
Right.
The erectors could build on those too. So which glute movements would you say don't work erectors at all? Just for fun.
The rounded back extensions, which I can show. Rounded foot flared back. You want to show those?
Yeah, sure. Let's go. We're going on an adventure now.
Okay. Okay. So when you do a 45-degree hyper, there's nothing wrong with feet. We call it this neutral. Feet are straight. You try to stay pretty neutral, and you come up tall, and you end here, which is pretty neutral-ish. So feet are in neutral, bend, boom. But we do this with a dumbbell, we do this with a band. You finish a set like that, your hamstrings, glutes, and erectors will be lit up. And there's nothing wrong with it, that's great. But if you want to take your lower back out of it, and you want to maximize the glute stimulus, well, you turn your feet out 45 degrees, and then you round your back. If you round your back, and then you keep it rounded, it doesn't extend, it doesn't activate. So you can put electrodes on your low back. If you stay rounded like this, they won't activate. Flare your feet out, and it's just glute.
So I have my girls always keep this rounded back motion so that they're able to isolate their glutes more in their hamstrings.
Yeah.
Exactly for that purpose. Because if you do keep your spine and your upper body in a more straight angle, then you are going to work your erectors, which is not what you, because that's going to work your erectors.
That can work your erectors.
Then the glutes.
And then theoretically, you can extend the set longer because your glutes are what finally fatigue, not your low back. And then I would also say this movement here, seated hip abductions. Here's the deal. When you do full range, if I'm leaning, watch my low back. I come in about here, and it starts rounding. See that? And then it's this weird, you see it moving, round arch. So instead, what we do is get as much lean as you can while fully out in the abducted position. Some of my girls can get like horizontal, but you stay here, and then you just do pulses like this.
And that's going to work more your glute max?
Yeah. You'll feel it in the low. I remember when I was training Masa, and she was super lean. When she remember the last 3 shows she did, and was it 2020?
2022, yeah.
You could
see the striations, yeah.
You could see it down here in her low glutes. So the bigger the lean, the more your glute max fibers are. But this isn't going to build your erectors. So do this leaning and do pulses. We love...
Wait, and if you want to build your glute meds,
your glute med,
how do you position that?
What you do is you bridge up, and we put these underneath the glutes. Helps so much. But you bridge up here, and then you go out like this. This is all glute medius, and you can put this down.
Why does this help so much? Just you can explain to them.
Because you're seated now. When you do it like this, watch me do a set. I should mention, we also will put these guys here because this particular one, it provides no resistance from here to here. It's just this no tension. So if you put these here, now I want tension from my knees touching. Want tension the whole way through.
Like a range of motion you can do, right?
And more tension through the full range of motion, right? Yeah. More active tension. So then, if you watch me do a set, bridged, okay?
If a mic this.
I'm sure it's fine.
You're doing a full training, bro.
I know. So if I go bridged, watch what happens. I sink. See that? I sink down. I still feel my upper glutes. But if I sit here like this, then I stay.
And that's all glute med.
All up here. Frontal plane hip abduction, glute medius. I would say gluteator. This works the glutes really well. And we'll even lean forward on this. I have these wedges that I use, and I wedge people in like this. So they have to lean forward. So this is another one that's going to build glutes without erectors. This is great though, because you're starting in a deep, we can put these pads on, and I can have you come all the way up. I don't have any weight on. To here where you get a deep hip flexion position, and then you're going out. This is no erector. So I love the gluteator. I think the glute dominant step-ups, the way we do step-ups.
Doing a full workout now, Brett.
No. What we do is you want to go a little deeper than parallel. You have your foot in line with your body. And then from here, it's just leaning. Vertical shin in front. Boom. Reach back.
I want to stretch the hamstring and the glute max.
Because you keep that shin vertical. I don't need extra weight on these. My girls have an ankle weight on. But you do this for stability. Then you come back, you try to slow it down right here. Oh, right there. That's not working much erector at all.
You feel on your glutes and hams?
So much glute. It minimizes quads. So you want that vertical shin, reach back, just go a little bit below parallel, and then...
We're only on question 2 out of 41.
We'll go fast. We can go fast. And another thing I do that would take hip flexors out of it, take your erectors out of it, we do 2 styles of kickbacks here. This style, my girls will do the whole stack. So they're right here, and you just do from here up. So this is like a bottom third, lengthen partial. You're trying to feel the stretch. What's interesting is...
That's for your glute max?
For glute max. If you do 3 hard sets this way, you will feel, the next day you'll almost feel that same soreness as when you do lunges, but you didn't work your quads. It really works you in a stretch. I have to pin extra weight here to have, you're really strong with these. Then we take half the weight, put it to here, and then you do the squeeze. You just come up to here and squeeze back.
That's more glute med?
No, they both work the glute max.
Okay.
If you want to work glute med, this is tricky. This used to be my favorite, but now we have the snow angel and the bridge seated hip abduction, and everyone likes those more. This used to be like, this was India's favorite for months, but it's tricky. What you have to do is position your body at a 45-degree angle this way, and you go like this, and then it's, because then right here is the right angle, but if I go like this, I'll show you from that side. If I go like this, and I try to stay squared off this way, then you end up going like this.
It's an abduction.
But it's not working the glute med so much. You're in flexion. I'm in hip flexion here. So I want to angle myself this way and me more. See, if you put your hand here.
I'm not doing that, Bret.
You put your head on your own and you come out to the side and go forward. Feel right here. You won't feel anything. Then you move it back, move it back to here. It's rock hard. And I have girls do that. Then I say, that's the angle you want.
Makes sense.
This is the angle that matches the angle of your pelvis. Your pelvis is this way. So take that exact angle, and it's like a 30-degree kickback. Shout out to Coach Chasm for making that more popular. EMG studies show the same. EMG when you go straight out versus out at an angle. But it makes sense. It makes sense to go at that direction.
So is there a benefit to doing it the way that you see everyone doing in the gym, right? Where you're vertical in with the machine?
Where you're perfectly lined up?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll still feel it. But you're in flexion. Why not do seated hip abduction?
Yeah.
Leaning forward a little bit. That's more stable. But that's a tricky one. So I'll show you guys the snow angel machine to wrap it up. But, real quick, I mentioned,
how about kickbacks, though? Kickbacks.
We do cable kickbacks, band kickbacks, and ankle weight kickbacks. And we do kickbacks off this, and we also do them underneath the reverse hyper. If you crawl underneath the reverse hyper, that's good for you.
Are you able to show the proper form for kickbacks, let's say for your upper glutes?
Yeah, I'll show that. But we do most of our squats and lunges off this now. We do most of our deadlifts off the piss shark and this guy here.
I'm training Bret now. It's a surprise training session.
Yeah.
He's sweating.
And with this, this is great because you can do 2 legs at a time. You can do B stance, or you can do single leg. They're all amazing.
But you can see in this movement, even though you're working your glute max and your hams, you're still working, you're going to be working your erectors.
You're going to work your erectors, even if you do single leg.
So if you're doing hip thrust and you're not.
Funny story, I didn't know how strong. I have no balance. So if I try a barbell single leg, I'm all over the place. But I learned that I could do 3 plates on each side. And if I center my foot, I'm so strong. I did 10 reps, single leg with 3 plates on each side. The next day, my low back was sore from single leg RDLs because I'm strong in them. So yes, they absolutely work the erector.
So if you're doing this movement and you're demonizing hip thrust,
exactly,
that doesn't make any sense.
Be consistent. And if you want a muscle to not grow or to shrink, you want it to atrophy or not grow at all, you can't activate that muscle highly. So don't do any movements that activate it to a high degree. And you could say, well, we're not going to do hip thrust. But again, in that case, I would do scoop hip thrust because they're saying that posterior pelvic tilting works more erectors, it works less. If you're posterior pelvic tilted, then you're shutting down some of the erectors. You're not shortening it while you come up. You're not activating it to its fullest potential. And that's why it's safer for people's backs. That's why you have less back pain when you do scoop method. That was a game changer. But I wish people knew the history of hip thrusting because this was like 2014-ish when we started scooping, and overnight, all around the world, back pain vanished.
Yeah, you told me about this before.
Yeah, and then now it's do both. Do whatever you like the most, and sometimes it's good. I tell my girls it's good to do conventional deadlifts. It's good to do sumo deadlifts. It's good to do front squats. It's good to do back squats. It's good to do box squats. It's good to do stiff leg deadlifts. It's good to do scoop method hip thrusts. It's good to do. Why would anyone just do one method of lifting. And the people who say this is the only way to lift, could you imagine how boring training would be? If you had to stick to one way of doing a lift year round, it would be very boring.
Individual based on their goal too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, yeah, I write new programs every month. My girls in here, I don't always write them programs because they come in and they're like, Coach, I'm going to do hip thrusts today. What should I do? And we do hip thrusts here. It's funny because in San Diego, we do a lot of Smith machine hip thrusts, but this is a vertical Smith machine. I like this diagonal, the slanted Smith machines more. So we don't do Smith machine hip thrusts when you hip thrust as you come up, the bar moves out a little bit. So it makes more sense. I like squatting and lunging more off a vertical. I like hip thrusting and glute bridging more off a slanted one.
So the biomechanics of the slanted one are better than the straight one, right? For hip thrust.
Yes, and when you hip thrust, your head is here and the slant is this way. When you glute bridge, your head is here and the slant is this way. Because when you glute bridge, you come up, the bar comes close to your head. When you hip thrust, the bar moves further away from your head. But we do hip thrust off this machine. This is the hip thruster 2.0. That's like using a bench, but you can put bands on. We do hip thrust off of the rotisserie. They love this method.
What's the difference between that one over there and this one?
So this one, it's so different. It's a whole different experience. With this one, it forces you to hinge. You can't, because girls will go like this and scoop with it.
Because of the bench movement, right?
Your back is supported. So you start here, you come up, you keep coming up. My head's going to hit.
I like
to here. You come up high. When girls first start doing it there, they feel like they're going to tip over backwards. But you have the bar here.
Position where you have to do
go tall, boom. And your knees extend, but you're not using quads. It's just glutes, but you're very supported. Boom. So this is the top. You're coming real high. But it's
Are they able to buy this on your website?
Yeah, but the girls will say, I feel this so much in my lower glutes.
I saw a similar machine at Pure Muscle and Fitness, and it's like a $10,000 machine. But it has the same movement of the bench that you're on right now. So this is probably a much cheaper.
And then we have the Thruster Pro. And it's funny because we've tried all sorts of solutions because my girls are so strong. They come like this, and this isn't not enough. So we have the squat sponge. We have all different types. Now they're using these types of pads.
What's that?
You get off Amazon. It's like a hip thrust pad. They like this more. These should honestly come with this. But
so you put that pad under the belt?
Yeah. And we have to come up with solutions because the girls are getting bruises. They're getting these.
That would help.
Some of the girls get scabs like here. They're actually getting like cuts off to the side and stuff.
Yeah, it should come with that.
Yeah. So kickbacks, and then we'll get back to the questions. With kickbacks, we've got some of the girls prefer. So you got the foot straps like this, where you put your whole foot in. I would say 50% of the girls like kickbacks with this more, and 50% like kickbacks with the ankle cuff more. It just depends on what you like more. But
what's the difference between both? Just the way it feels on your foot?
I like the foot strap more because the foot strap, you can push through your heel a little bit. But anyway.
Set up all in your ankle, right?
Yeah. So let's say you do it off the ankle cuff. There's a lot of ways to do this, right? So we could. All right. So the first thing, you don't want to be like here and touch here. So you need to back up from the machine. In my Las Vegas house, I've got the coolest, the cable column is slanted this way, and then it has the handles. You're using these handles, and this naturally lets your leg go far ahead. But anyway, all right, you can use this. You just want to be able to get some motion here. There's a few ways to kick back. Some girls like to keep their legs straight and just be like this. I don't like that as much. Daraja, she likes to be like super upright like this and just be like.
That's going to work more your erectors though, wouldn't it?
Turns your foot out. No, this is just like a light. You got to go lighter and real strict. But that's fine. It just doesn't move you through a bigger range of motion. If you want more range, lean back and do this swoop method. This is the way I prefer. I teach it, but then I let all the girls do it how they like it the most. But this is what I think works best.
Yeah.
Be here and swoop. So.
Bigger range of motion, right? So you hit more of your...
Yeah.
I just started doing these with Issa Bikini. So I saw her in, she was just doing the, like kind of like a smaller range of motion on the cable kickback. And I was like, we're not working the full glute muscle. So we changed the range of motion and doing exactly that. And I think it's going to be...
That hits my glutes really hard. And that's when I get annoyed. You have guys bashing this, and they've literally never done a set of kickbacks in their life. Trust me, I like squatting and deadlifting heavy weight, but this was working my glutes. I feel it a lot. And you get better at it as you do it. So
let's go back for them. You're done here training for today.
I know.
That's going to be cool that now people can actually see you.
I'm soaked in sweat.
So we're going to get back into your questions. Do hip dips slowly depend on bone structure and muscle attachment points, or can specific glute exercises help minimize them?
You go look at like Ronnie Coleman back in the day. Look at pictures of bodybuilders, male bodybuilders who are lean, and even female bodybuilders lean.
They have crazy hip dips.
Well, it ends up being a butterfly shaped. The glute medius are here, the glute max go here, and it's shaped like a butterfly.
All of them, basically. Right?
All of them. Yeah. If you're lean, you have to have hip dips. And you can learn to hide them with posing. And if you're heavier, the fat can fill it in. But to me, hip dips are athletic. They're a natural sign of a well-trained athlete. And if you're lean enough, you're gonna have hip dips. But they are a very genetic thing in terms of like how pronounced they are. Has a lot to do with
the craziest ones. Ronnie Coleman had the craziest like exerted hip dips, right?
But with Ronnie, they look good because he's got these vastus lateral. You've got these big quads, so it's nestled in with these giant quads. When you have, it's funny, you should show that picture if you can.
I don't. Yeah.
With women, it can not look quite as, it can look a little more off, but here's the deal. If you have a wider pelvis and like narrower hip, and then just where your attachment points are, and so yeah, you can have the distance between the iliac, like the crest to like the acetabulum or like the head of the femur. If there's a big distance in between there, clearly you're going to have you have a bigger propensity to have hip dips. So there's the genetic aspect of that, but
is there anything you could do to reduce it or not?
Theoretically, if you had really bad hip dips, you could like quit doing abduction. But like all my girls in here do abduction. They all do abduction. And like I've seen like YouTube videos where people are like, quit doing abduction, they're adding to hip dips. Well, my girls have the best glutes in the world.
I've never addressed this issue with any one of my athletes, bikini athletes. I've never told them to not do adduction movement because of hip dips. It's not really a thing in bikini because also you're not getting that shredded anyways, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't really see that as an issue. We addressed a lot of these. Are there any counterproductive trends towards glute building in the fitness industry?
Yeah.
We addressed it earlier.
Well, I'll just go on it real quickly. Yeah. Before I came around, it's funny because I think I've been around long enough now that people don't know my history. I came into this, I was the only glute guy for 10 years. There was only me. Everyone listened to me with glutes. It was nice. Now there's a million glute people. When I came into the industry, people did legs one day, like the bodybuilding world did legs one day a week. And they only did squat. If you said kickbacks, they'd go, it was a male dominated. So they'd say kickbacks are for sissies. Hip thrusts weren't invented yet.
Isolation.
There was no hip thrust and glute bridges. You didn't do the abduction machine because that was for sissies. You did squats, you did lunges, you did stiff legged or like RDLs or stiff legs, and that's it. And you saw some nice glutes back then, but it was rare. I would say it's 10 times more prevalent now to go into a gym and see nice glutes. Why are glutes nicer now than they used to be then? A big thing was me getting people to train glutes 3 times a week. This was the #1 fight that I fought back then. The males would say, how could you recover? You're not going to recover. You should only train legs 1 day a week. And I would say, the girls can recover. You train your freaking arms 3 days a week. Like, They care as much about glutes as you do all the upper body muscles combined. You can recover as long as you're not doing so much volume for all the other body parts. One study showed women do 40 sets a week of glutes and men do 9. The women can recover. They're not doing all the upper body sets. They're not systemically killing themselves, and they're doing a mixture of compound and isolation movements. So that was the fight that I fought. So a lot of the progress is because of increased frequency and volume, but also this emphasis on getting strong at hip thrusts. That alone made glutes way better. Now it's going back to that. It's weird. It's like glutes are so much.
Pendulum, right?
Look at bikinis. The first bikini contest was in what, 2010?
2010, 2011. Yeah, around. Yeah.
And you look at the progression of glute development.
Which are much better now.
They're much better now. And now people are trying to say, go back to how it used to be. They don't have the perspective. They don't know. So there's all these studies that have emerged showing long length training is better than short length training, meaning if you do preacher curl that's hard down here, it's going to be better for biceps growth than doing, say, a concentration curl, which is hard up here. Like doing a dumbbell fly would be better than doing...
Letting go full stretches.
Cable, yeah. So that is true. There's a ton of studies. I'm all over this research. I have every single study. I have a folder. I talk to all the top researchers. But we don't have enough research yet. On glutes, we have the one study. Plotkin, I funded the study with my friend Menno Henselman. And squats and hip thrusts tied with glute development.
I remember you posted that.
Squats grew the quads better, but they both grew the glute max similarly. But that's with a twice a week. Squatting twice a week is optimal in my opinion. You could hip thrust 3 times a week easier. You can do a lot more volume with hip thrust. So in my opinion, this squats had the advantage with that study. But here's the deal. What bodybuilder ever just does what bodybuilder does hamstrings and only does stiff leg deadlifts and like seated leg curls? No, they'll do lying leg curls. All bodybuilders throw in leg extensions, which work your quads at a shorter position. That actually maximizes rectus femoris growth too. But what bodybuilder would do biceps and just do like incline dumbbell curls and preacher curls and not do any barbell curls, hammer curls, or...
So I actually remember you posting the study, right, that you did based on the squats and the hip thrusts, how they both activate the glutes the same, right? I found it really nice that as a scientist, right, your goal is to get the best result for your client, even if it goes maybe against a little bit what you're teaching, right? So you're like, listen, I did this, I conducted the study, and just the fact that you wanted to do that study that can maybe disprove what you think is genuine of you, right? Because you're like, listen, the squats, they incorporate the same amount of glutes as the hip thrust, or hypertrophy of the glutes as hip thrust.
Yeah.
So this is the finding that I resulted in with the study. But the thing is with the squats is you are incorporating a lot more of the quads. So if you're just a beginner, you want to build your whole body, then maybe you can opt for the squats. And if you don't want to build your quads, maybe you could go more with the glutes, but you could also do both. If
that's the thing. Everyone does both.
Yeah. Unless your quads are too big. Yeah.
Unless your quads, exactly. Because the rule of thirds that I talked about would have you doing all that perfectly. But don't stop hip thrusting. Don't stop kickbacks. Don't stop using bands. Bands are awesome.
But as a scientist, your goal is to research and advancing what we're all trying to learn, right? And even though it may not help you in a certain way, you still want the best for the clientele and the movement of continuing to build.
Here's the deal. That study we funded, it was $80,000 because MRIs are expensive. It took a whole year of like planning, getting it done, collecting the results, doing the statistical analysis, writing it up, submitting it to a journal, responding to peer reviewers. This is a lengthy
process. And this is all to go against what the movement that you invented.
Yeah.
So because you really want to know it. Yeah.
And
it shows you're unbiased.
And what I will say is, yes, that study came out that they're equal, but from my experience, I'm also a trainer. I can tell you that when Yarishna came in here, she was focused on squats and leg press and lunges and hammies, quads and hammies.
She's wellness, trying to really grow her legs.
Wellness, no, they told her, you need to grow your glutes. Your legs are huge. You need to grow your glutes. Yes. You're battling the Brazilians.
So then she should stop doing those squats.
I said, Yarishna, you need to stop training legs altogether. Your legs are not going to shrink if you're still training glutes. Let's quit all squats, hack squats, leg press, leg extension.
They're telling you your
leg
squats are too big. You can't be doing those exercises.
You got to grow. You got to really prioritize glutes, maybe for an entire year. Let's hip thrust every day you come in here. Let's do all these machines I showed 3 times a week. And I would say it took her like 3 months to get her glutes. And her glutes skyrocketed from hip thrust. She knows that. Right. And then I could say the same for Amanda, for Vika, for Bobby Manu. They started prioritizing hip thrusts and their glutes got bigger.
I incorporate hip thrusts in every single one of my clients' trainings on every glute day. I think it's the superior movement. And I've seen the progress of all the clients that incorporate the hip thrust. And I don't see their waist getting bigger as well. Like the pros outweigh the cons by 100 to 1, in my opinion. Yeah.
But also, to answer that question, are there any bad trends? It's to bash these shorter length movements and say they're worthless. They don't do anything. They do too. I've had girls that start using bands 3 times a week and doing their kickbacks and standing abductions and lateral band walks, and their glutes grow. We don't have enough research to be saying the things like, and to say something's a garbage exercise, that's for someone looking for popularity, because no real trainer that cares about their clients' results says those things. That's stuff you do to try to stand out on social media. And some guys find that the only way they can get attention is by bashing exercises. And they're all good. They're all great. But you should always do a variety of movements, because you can't possibly maximize your training volume just doing super like lengthened partials and long length movements. And those work other muscles too. So you should do those movements, but you should also target your glutes and do a variety of exercises.
And if you have that opinion, you can't do one and not the other. Like we're explaining before, you were training. If you're doing like RDLs or any movement where your erectors are going to be utilized and you're demonizing the hip thrust, then it doesn't make sense. So you need to be consistent with everything you're saying.
But all these biomechanical guys, they never have their actual biomechanics degree.
There's a lot of, there's not just one trainer or 2 trainers. I see this a lot.
It's a popular trend now. Yeah. It's pretend you're an expert on biomechanics, but you've never taken a biomechanics course. You're not, you just pretend. And you can pick these guys apart because they're so inconsistent with their logic.
Yeah, like that, yeah.
They'll say things like, to maximize glute size, you have to use a complete full range of motion, going as deep as humanly possible and going as high as possible so you get maximum lengthening and shortening. But then they'll say, for the glute medius, do a squat. Well, you're not moving the glute medius through a full range of motion and they're all doing a squat. You're using a stabilizer roll. So that's how you can tell that people, if you're not consistent with your biomechanics, then you're a charlatan, you're a quack. You're just looking for, and a lot of these people just try to confuse people so they try to train with them.
Yeah, the thing is, if you try to sound like intelligent and make up all these things, then you are gonna attract an audience, because it's gonna be like, well, he's saying things that no one's ever said before, or she's saying things that no one's ever said before, and maybe this is the truth. Maybe this is the next generation of glute building or whatever they're talking about. So you are gonna be able to convince some people. So I would say that's a negative trend in the industry, but it's gonna happen in any industry too.
Especially now with the algorithms.
Yeah.
We used to, back 10 years ago, the industry would go after these. You Google the person's name and it would come up. If you Googled your name and the first 5 things that come up were, this guy's a quack, this guy's a fraud, this guy's a joke, this guy's a charlatan, you learn to stop saying stupid things. Yeah. But now there's so many of them and there's no consequences. You could be dead wrong.
Unless you're violating going after all of them. But no, it's not a point. You're not going to spend your days being like, there's 20 different trainers saying different.
For me, like, why would I go out? I would have to go out. There's a new post every day that someone sends me.
Yeah,
where like, someone's just going to bashing my methods or bashing me or bashing hip thrusts, and they're wrong. But my whole feed would just be me responding to negativity instead of just doing
and then you're going to be a negative person.
Yeah.
Just be positive and teach what you know, and you have the right intentions.
Yeah.
All that matters.
But when you don't have any research, in my opinion, you shouldn't say things like, you can tell.
As a matter of fact.
I'm biased. I invented the hip thrust. I'm naturally going to be biased towards thinking it's the best thing since sliced bread. But I do, you can tell, I do try to be cautious, and I don't try to, like, I might say the hip thrust is the best, but I do say, you need to do all these other movements. Like, half of me thinks...
You've been saying that all day, yeah.
I've been saying that all day, and I show all these different exercises. Half of me thinks if I just had clients just do hip thrusts alone, they just all did hip thrusts 3 times a week, different variations and rep ranges, their glutes would grow better than all the other stuff we combine. I wonder that. How am I ever going to prove that? Are we ever going to have a study showing like 12 sets of hip thrusts 3 times a week
It's
versus
going to go from not doing hip thrusts to doing only hip thrusts 3 times
I
a
know.
week.
Then the
40
pendulum
sets.
back. Yeah.
So
That would I say is a negative trend of people saying these are garbage exercises, people saying don't do this, it's worthless, this is way better. You can do both.
on that note, like, are you able to do hip thrusts, let's say let's say you're training glutes 3 times a week. Should you do them every day? Can you do them every day?
Yeah.
If you're recovering properly?
Yes. Well, what I should say is there's the occasional person who just doesn't like hip thrusts. There's no movement that everyone loves.
But are you going to see benefit? Let's say you like them.
Yeah, if you like hip thrusts, should you 3 times a week? Yeah, in my opinion. But you should vary them. You don't just do 3 sets of 8.
Okay.
Barbell, 3 sets of 8. What we would do here is sometimes we do the Thruster Pro, the plate loaded. Sometimes we use bands on it. That's different. The bands overload the top more. They're lighter at the bottom, heavier at the top. Sometimes we do the rotisserie that I showed you that has the back pad that
So you would do the same movement, well, with kind of different, sometimes different variation to it.
And then sometimes, but you have, so with the 3 pieces of equipment that we also have the Scorcher, but anyway. So we might use Scorcher, Thruster Pro, rotisserie hip thrust, and hip thruster 2.0. So we have 4 stations to hip thrust off of. And with those, you can do pause reps, you can do standard reps, or you can use bands. And you can put a band around your knees. You can do high reps, you can do medium reps, you can do low reps, you can do pyramids, you could do 1 1/4 reps, you can do B stands, single leg. There's so many, and you can.
So if you're at a normal gym, you just have
other gyms have Smith machine. You might have a different. Some places have the hammer strength. Some people have not many places have mine, the BC strength, but like some places have the Nautilus glute drive. But if you like, stick to like your favorite, do your favorite hip thrust and the rep range you like the most, the load that you like the most. Do that more often, but switch it around a lot. I think that's the way to go. And some days go for PRs. Other days just try to focus more on the mind-muscle connection. Yeah, it works great.
So next question, does tempo make a difference in glute training?
So if you look at the research on tempo, there's a couple review papers. I think there's a couple review papers on tempo, and what they show is it doesn't really matter that much. As long as you don't do super slow reps. If you do super slow reps, it's not as effective. But in the research, like 2 to 8 seconds or 2 to 9 seconds got this similar results. I think it obviously depends on the movement. And then there's also a review paper on movement velocity, and it showed that like for quads, there were 3 studies that showed that slower movement velocities were superior, but for the biceps, there were 2 studies showing faster movement velocities were better. So
Let's say
for the glutes and like hip thrust, I like using momentum, because when you use momentum, you're in that deep position, you're in that stretch, you're trying to really turn it on. A lot of bodybuilders use a lot of momentum. They explode out of the bottom. That doesn't mean fling it and don't control the top. But I don't believe in just going super slow. And
like a robot, right?
You have to use momentum to change states, like to get something moving. But I do believe in using a lot of momentum, but you have to move through the full range and control the top still. But there's no research on this, so it's anyone's guess. But my guess would be that you shouldn't do super slow. You shouldn't be like, anytime I have a yoga practitioner or a Pilates person come in, they try to be so slow. And I'm like, come on, explode. But you're not trying to be like an Olympic lifter and catapult the thing but you should be.
I've seen some people like do, let's say like a cable kickback with the full stack and trying to just do 1 second eccentric, 1 second concentric. That's great. So I think from my understanding of what you said is you want to have reasonable form, right? And so that your tempo you're able to have reasonable form, really contract at the top, and some momentum through the bottom is fine.
It's fine. And I also think there's some genetic factor that you train all sorts of people, you learn. Some people, just like me, I'll do bench press and people go, wow, and you did eccentric accentuated. No, I'm not. I have to lower it so slow. And then I feel strongest that way. If I dive bomb the rep, I'm so weak.
Got it.
So you should also do your preferred.
Based on your genetics and whatever you feel.
Some people lower the eccentric slower. Some people can be more explosive. And also depends on the movement.
I did a training video with Isa and I was explaining to the people where it's, you don't want to adapt to the exercise. You want to make the exercise adapt to you, right? Because everyone's different and you can't just give a program and be like, you're doing this with this amount of weight, with this amount. It doesn't make any sense.
I still agree with that.
People have different lengths of arms and torsos and
everything.
Their bodies have
points.
Yeah.
I always say, try this, but then if you like your way more, do it your way.
Exactly. So I had Isa doing, let's say, for example, doing shoulders, and she had like her pinky up like this, turning anteriorly. And I'm like, do you feel it better like this? And she has, typically I would teach to keep maybe your palm a little bit more neutral. And she said, no, I feel it better like this. I'm like, well, you have good shoulders. You've been doing this for 10 years. Keep it like that because you like it better. That's what you feel. Exactly. Yep. So there's no set thing for everyone because everyone.
Totally agree. Okay. And every trainer knows that. Yeah. No trainer tries to say there's one way to do everything.
Yeah. There is people that do that, but it doesn't turn. It's not the right way.
Then they're trying to fool you, and they're not genuine.
So does the order of exercises make a difference when working glutes?
That's a fascinating question. We don't know the answer to that. We do know that whatever you do first gets the best stimulus. So if someone needs to grow their upper glutes, that's like India. You told India, grow your upper glutes.
Because your lower glutes are crazy already.
Yeah. So you told her that. So she comes to me and says, I need to grow my upper glutes. So guess what we did first? Upper glutes. We don't do hip thrust first.
Got it.
We did that. The hammer strength multi-hip first.
You want to hit that first, right?
Now we do the snow angel machine first. But that's what you do first. But we do two frontal plane abduction. We do it in the beginning and the end of the workout, just for some rework. So she might do a heavier movement like the multi-hip or now like the snow angel. And then at the end of the workout, she might use bands.
Like the burnout. Yeah. So like you go into the training session like stimulating that muscle first, that's your weakness, and then you end it with that just to feel like.
But it's funny. I geek out on like mechanisms and science. There's a study showing that when you pump a muscle up, then it gets stretched a lot more at the bottom. Theoretically, you could get a pump first and then do a deep exercise. Maybe over time we find that stimulates muscle growth the best, or not. But we don't have enough research on this.
Okay.
But I geek out on mechanisms.
But you would say start with your weakest part. So let's say you have
start with your weakest part. Yeah.
You're training quads and glutes, and your glutes are weaker, then you would train your glutes first, right? Yes. To get the stimulus there.
And that's what I do with girls that are well-rounded. For girls that are well-rounded, maybe they have a day where they squat first, a day where they hip thrust first, and a day where they RDL first. For girls that really need to prioritize glutes, they might hip thrust first all 3 days.
Perfect, makes sense. How does someone with severe lower back issues bring in lower glutes? I think we talked about that before with exercises that don't incorporate erectors as much.
Yep.
So that's what you would.
And learning the form for you, you might think that you can't do back extensions, but if you round, maybe that feels better. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe if you do scoop method on the hip,
you're gonna have to try everything and see.
I have 60 clients that I train in real life, and I can't tell you how different they all are. And we have to experiment, and you have to keep tinkering and trying new things.
So if there's a certain exercise where you really feel your lower back, don't do them, or try to tweak them where you wouldn't for your lower back.
Try and tweak it, and then if it keeps hurting, don't do it. Avoid it. Exactly. No matter, even if it's the hip thrust, even if it's the squat, even if an RDL, or like a single leg press, and you think it's such a good movement, if it's hurting you, you got to give it up over time.
Injury worse.
Yeah.
Do that. Good. What are the most effective exercises to enhance your glute size in a home setting without like equipment?
So interesting, there was a study on this that just got published. It looked at progressive squats versus progressively harder single leg movements for body weight. They start off like with Bulgarian, like lunges, then Bulgarian split squats, then skater squats, then like single leg box squats, and then pistol squats. And they saw similar gains in the glutes. But I would say if you're training from home, the best thing you can, and we learned so much about glutes during the quarantine. I feel like I'm a master of body weight training in general now.
Yeah, we all
had to. The coaches had to adapt. So if you train from home, hopefully you can find a partner that you can hip thrust. I know it's weird, but think about it.
I made fun of Massa during that. I was like, it's very weird you're hip thrusting your boyfriend right now.
But it's 200. Chris weighs 190 or 200. Now he's 200. He's a 200 pound, and it's harder than a 200 pound barbell. So say what you want. If you and I were stuck in the same house and we had no weight,
I'm just gonna have no glutes. I'm not.
what? No, but I'd be like, will you sit on my back and I could do like push-ups or something? I would.
Maybe I'm not hip thrusting.
We'd be like doing because how are you going to train your biceps? We'd be like, dude, will you manual resist me? And you'd be pushing and we'd be,
So would you say, let's say they can get bands or something and do those type of movements?
Now, so I would say partner hip thrust. Then you move on to the pure single leg movements. Skater squats are awesome. In skater squats, you can really try to curtsy a little and feel it in the glutes, but also just step up body weight. Those step ups I showed you, those I felt them doing body weight.
Yeah, that looks intense. Yeah,
they're hard, especially if you're heavy. And then pistol squats, like a lot of these work the quads a lot too. But then if you do single leg hip thrust, I don't care who you are. We do this with my Booty by Bret program, 3x20. 3 sets of 20 is brutal. I don't care who you are. 3 sets of 20 is hard. 20 with the left leg, 20 with the right leg. Rest a minute. 20, 20, rest a minute, 20, 20. It's brutal. So single leg hip thrust, then you can always finish off with just like body weight hip thrust where you're really squeezing the top and pushing as high as you can. And you can really get a lot out of that. I like frog pumps. Some people hate them. Then you can do all the abduction movements. Sideline hip raises are awesome. That's like a transverse plane. And then you can do extra range sideline hip abductions. You can do, I call them glute medius hip thrusts with no weight. It's like hip hikes with more range of motion. There's so many good, you could keep a lot of your glute size from home. And if you're not advanced, you could build them from home.
Yeah, ideally try to get into a gym so you have more equipment. But if you're really stuck in a situation where, even let's say you're traveling for a week or something, there's no equipment, bring some bands and incorporate some of those movements and do body weight movements.
And you point out bands. Throw in band kickbacks, band standing abduction, band hip hinge abduction, band seated hip abductions, and lateral band walks. Those annihilate your glutes. Yeah.
But are you going to be like a bikini Olympian just training like that? Probably not, unless you have crazy genetics.
If you're on Anavar and you train that way, maybe. So if you've trained for a long time, then you can maintain your glutes on that. Yeah, it depends. It just depends. But yeah, you have to get strong. My girls who hip thrust 315 for 20, that's usually when they start liking their glute development a lot. And that's hard. That's not easy. Yeah. You got to get strong.
Yeah.
But also, I've deadlifted 650 pounds. I almost got 675. And I can't do a skater squat deep. Like, it's hard. Skater squats can be hard. Pistol squats, can you bust out pistols?
I can't. I don't even know. I don't have that flexibility. My knees are
hard.
Break.
They're hard. People knock bodyweight training. You can make it hard.
Next question. The piriformis muscle. How does incorrect glute training or lack of stretch cause a tight piriformis? Education could prevent pain like sciatica during posing.
Okay. It's so weird because this is an online problem. My girls, we do abduction.
Can you explain what a piriformis is first?
Piriformis is it's one of the deep 6 hip external rotator muscles. They're basically inside, underneath the glutes, right? And it's like the rotator cuff for the shoulder. Yeah. They're like that for the hips. And the piriformis, there's all these studies showing that these genetic variations, but the sciatic nerve can come up through in between. It runs uniquely in different people, but it can get irritated. You can get sciatica or piriformis syndrome from doing a lot of abduction. But none of my girls have this issue. None of my girls in San Diego and none of my girls here in Fort Lauderdale. So
in practice, you haven't really seen it.
I think it's because when they come train with me, I'll give them seated hip abduction. They do 2 or 3 sets. Well, I used to just do one exercise. I do standing or like seated, or like frontal plane or transverse plane. Now I'm giving 2, but I don't give them 4 sets of each. I give them typically I'm like 2 sets. Can I do 3? I'm like, sure, but we don't go crazy with the volume, but they build into it and they develop a base and they never get it. But online I read about all the time and people going seated hip abductions are so dangerous. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
I've never come across this issue either myself, and I coach hundreds of girls all the time.
Yeah, and I have, like I said, 60 clients in real life. None of them have this.
But let's just say,
so what I think is happening is they're like, I don't know, if they're going berserk on these, if they're like doing 10 sets, But if you just start off gradually, but then also, if you start feeling something, because throughout the year, every weeks, I'm 47. I've been lifting since I was like 15. So 32 years of lifting. Every week something hurts on me. I have to train around it. You don't train through it. You don't just go, oh, my pec is hurting. I'm going to slam bench press. I'll try and see if close grip feels okay. No, I can't do bench for a little bit. I got to take a week off bench.
Yeah.
You have to listen to your body and train around it.
Well, it's like your rotator cuff, right? If you're doing a movement that really agitates it, and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to do this week. So let's say like you feel that
piriformis.
Yeah, you feel piriformis. Like then don't do abductions for a week and maybe 2 weeks if you need to recover from it. If you still have an issue with that,
and then build back in slowly, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're not fine, then just
don't do the movement ever.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the solution. You know, I have some girls who are like, oh man, let's say I injured my trap or my shoulder or whatever. Don't train that muscle until it's fixed. There's an agitate more and make the situation work.
Yep.
One more info on hip imbalances and how to correct them resulting in glute imbalances. What I do is let's say a client has a glute that's bigger than the other, right? I'll make them start with the weaker glute first on any unilateral exercises and then match the amount of reps with the stronger part or the more developed part. I feel like that helps the imbalance a lot for every muscle group.
So we've gone through, it's funny, if you look at my YouTube videos over the years, first it was like, do that. Start with the weaker leg first and do the 2-to-1 method. Do 2 sets for the weaker side glute for every 1 set you do on the stronger side. And then it was do single leg reverse hypers before the workout just for the weaker glute, ankle weight. Mm-hmm. So throw an ankle weight on and just because it isolates it. But then then I was like, okay, one of my girls had such a glute imbalance. She was a stripper for 10 years and she always sat on the one side. And it's like she was doing like lengthened training for this side and never for this side. So she had this glute was very big and this glute was very small. And this erector was really big and this erector was small.
It's going to reduce her income.
No, she says it doesn't matter. She says it doesn't even matter if she's... I thought the same thing. But anyway, it got to a point where I said, look, we're going to train glutes 3 days a week. On Monday and Wednesday is just right glute. We would do all single leg for the right glute. And then Friday was full bilateral. And I still couldn't bring up that way. It's crazy. Sometimes there's such a crazy imbalance, but the first thing I try to do with people say it's normal to have an imbalance. I can swing harder.
Well, yeah, you're going to have an imbalance. Everyone's got an imbalance.
Everyone will. But visually, like in bikini, you don't want to have you don't want it to be noticeable. So sometimes you have to just do one side. If you have a crazy imbalance, I remember I trained a former bikini Olympian that won, I would say 6 years ago. I won't say her name, but she's on the reverse hyper. And one glute, she won the Olympia. One glute is up here, the other's down here. And I'm like, oh my God, you have a big cheese. I know, I hide it.
Yeah, with posing you can.
With posing, she can hide it. I'm like, how do you hide it? With the bilateral poses, she figures it out. But anyway, we were able to restore a lot of that, but you have to do something different. So what I try to say is you want symmetrical bilateral training. Make sure you're not shifting. You want to do all the things we said.
Well, that's what I was going to mention too, that exactly what you said, but just trying to go into it a little bit more. Like I see let's say someone has one shoulder bigger than the other, right? And they're doing like a bilateral movement, let's say like side laterals, right? And one side is clearly lifting higher than the other side. Yeah. You got to look at the mirror and make sure that you're symmetrical. Even some people on the hip thrust, right? That they're pushing more with their stronger glute than their weaker glute. Yep. So they're going to build a bigger balance. So you have to really be cautious.
It's so common. They always shift.
So you got to be record yourself, right, in the back or whatever, and see if you're really pushing one side or the other. And then if you have to, you're going to have to push a little bit more with your weaker side on the bilateral movements to really fix that balance, because your body's naturally going to want to do whatever it can to make whatever movement you're doing easiest. So it's going to utilize a stronger muscle, right?
Yep.
So just make sure that you're really record yourself, see if you're perfectly symmetrical. And if you're not, shift a little bit on the weaker side on the bilateral movements, push a little bit more with that side, and then see if you're fully adjusting. And I feel that makes a big difference.
And when you choose muscles to add more volume for the weaker side, try to make them as isolated as possible, because it's hard to isolate the glutes. You know?
Yeah.
Any squatting movement works, the quads and the adductors.
I feel like this is such common sense, but if you're doing unilateral movements, start on your weaker side. Always, for every muscle.
Always.
And I see, like, most people, they hear that and they're like, oh yeah, that's a smart idea. And they've been training for 10 years, but they just think, right? Start on the weaker side. And then let's say your right glute is stronger than your left glute. Start your weaker side, go to failure at say 18 reps on your left side, and then don't go to 25 reps on your stronger side. Match the same amount.
Match it.
So that then eventually the balance is going to come back. Yeah. What advice would you give to a man trying to build glutes and legs?
Don't train men the exact same way because men want to be big everywhere. Men want traps. Men want delts. We want every muscle. You can go down. We want every muscle to be big. I can't train. They wouldn't like a program that I give my women where it's like
you're doing like fire hydrants and stuff.
16 sets of glutes 3 times a week. But what I'll say is, if you're a man, typically I'll work with whatever program they have. So let's say they do the typical bro workout where Monday is chest, Tuesday is back, Wednesday is shoulders, Thursday is arms, and Friday is legs. And they do, for leg day, they do squats, stiff leg deadlifts, leg extensions, and leg curls, or like maybe leg press or something. What I'll say is, let's just add in hip thrusts.
I always do hip thrusts on like this. Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Same. Add in hip thrusts. That alone will make a huge difference. Then I might say, are you open-minded to, if they start seeing results, then they're more apt to change. Are you open-minded to having a quad and glute day and then a ham and glute day? Yeah, let's try it. So then you've got the opportunity to do even more glutes. So it's like, you can be like, on hamstring day, we'll do RDLs, we'll do back extensions, which also work the glutes. And then maybe like a leg curl, and then maybe you give them like a single leg hip thrust or something.
Even a lot of these movements are working your glutes anyways, like the RDLs and stuff too.
Yeah,
or like,
that's what I'm saying. So they get glutes with the RDLs, they get glutes with the back extensions.
You're not going to meet many guys that want to be like, okay, I want the perfect round bikini glutes. You're not going to give them a program where you're doing like the 33 with like...
Yeah, but exactly. So you don't try... they're not going to want to do abduction, a lot of them. So you try to do hamstrings.
I do adduction. I do it. I do the adduction.
I do too.
I know you do it.
I do abduction and adduction. But anyway, then on the quad day, you could say, let's do squats, let's do hip thrusts, let's do lunges.
You know what though? A lot of these top Olympian bodybuilders have realized that in their back double bicep pose, even their front double, you need adductors because that really fills out the lower body. So they're all doing the adductors now. They're all the machines that they didn't want to do. They're all working their adductors. They want to fill out the legs and
the adductors a third of the leg.
Yeah. What are some challenges you faced when developing your glute training methods?
We mentioned it. It was so much pushback with guys trying to... It's funny. The more I don't like to say bold statements. What I will say is a typical body part split is good for building the body as a whole, but it is terrible at building any one body part. You could always see better results doing a specialization program. If you train chest once a week, you would see better results training it twice a week. And some people will do that. There'll be a body part split, but they'll train whatever their weakness is twice a week. But women care, like I said, women care more about glutes than we do about pecs and biceps added together. They care so much about glutes. So they should be doing a specialization program, glutes 3 times a week. And when you train glutes, you also work your quads and hammies. And then they should do 2 upper body, a lot of them, 5 days a week, 2 upper body, 3 lower. That's my most popular program.
I do too.
Lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. LUL, that's what I call it.
I typically do that too. But let's say a girl has really weak delts. I'll put the delts twice a week. Like it doesn't make sense. Let's say there's symmetrical everywhere, but their delts are very weak. Why would I just make them train everything equally? It doesn't make any sense.
No. Yeah. And delts need to be trained.
Sometimes, twice a week. If they, unless their delts are matched the rest of their body. Yeah, but typically, as a bikini athlete or wellness, you want really big glute development. So you are going to train that twice a week. If their glutes are very overpowering, which is rare, then maybe you'll reduce to once a week. But it's not. It's very rare that I had that situation.
And then with delts, it's like when you train delts twice a week, one day maybe with cables, one day with dumbbells to keep it interesting. Yeah.
One day maybe more even pressing movements, one day more
isolation.
Isolation or lateral or anterior movement. What are the key principles for effective glute training?
Progressive overload is paramount. And then I'd say
explain what that is quickly.
Well, you got to get stronger over time. Like I said earlier, a good goal to shoot for. When girls come in here, they'll do hip thrusts with 135 for 15, and then I might go 185, and they get like 10. And like, oh my God. And I go, I want you getting 3 plates per side, 315, for 20 reps.
You need to
And they're
just
like,
progress over time.
Yeah.
If you go into the gym for 5 years and you're just doing the same movement,
Right.
we just explained, same reps, same resistance, you're progressive overload, improving over time
Yeah.
on either the amount of reps you do or the resistance that you're.
So you're going for PRs. It could be doing more reps with the same weight, doing more weight for the same reps, or it could be more sets or more volume, but you're always trying to progress.
Yeah.
And then I would say mind-muscle connection, you want to feel the glutes. Like I remember I learned this so long ago, bodybuilders would be like, I never had big pecs and I could bench so much weight, but I had to learn how to feel the
Incorporating your shoulders and your triceps so much.
They're doing all shoulders and triceps, and they learn to lighten the weight, feel the pecs stretching and contracting, and then they're like, then my pecs blew up. But so you got to care about feeling the muscle, but then it's not everything, because then people who do that typically won't, they're afraid of getting stronger because you don't always feel it when you set PRs.
Yeah, but exactly. So it goes both ways. Like you want good enough form where you're working the muscle that you're trying to work, but not like extremely strict all the time where you can't even lift.
Where you're like a robot that does it. Yeah, exactly.
What are the main contributors to bikini competitors getting quads that are too big? First of all, it's genetics. Second of all, it's the exercise choice. If you're doing squats or your quads are too big, don't do squats. It's very simple. Do more isolation movements. Just be smart with your exercise selection and don't do exercises that are going to, if I have some girls where quads are too big, you don't do any movement that's like a pressing movement besides maybe like a hip thrust. Like you're not doing any squat,
No
not doing
squats,
any
no leg press, no hack squats, no lunges, no leg extensions. Right.
Nothing.
And I would say also, don't just, until you've gotten lean, don't say you're quad dominant. Because a lot of times women store fat in their lower body.
I feel like flex them and really
It's like
just
me being like, I'm ab dominant because I carry my fat right here. When I get lean, with the rare times I get lean, I have nice abs. But if you store your fat somewhere, because it's like you look at the way most of the bikini Olympians train, most of them do squats. It's just that they're using 95 pounds or using 130. They're not going.
If they're very balanced.
Yeah.
Very balanced, yeah.
But they don't avoid lunges and squats. They still do them. They're just not obsessed with progressive overload.
The thing is with the bikini is the quads get overpowered very quickly. There's a very like small threshold where you can't go more on quads because you get marked down a lot. So at a certain point you're capped off and you really have to, but you can still like, if you're at that level, right, you can still do lunges, you can still do pressing movements, and you learn ways to really, let's say doing a leg press, right? Like we both know that there's certain ways where you can really incorporate.
Put your feet up high and wide and
Yes, but if you really have to trophy your quads, you cannot stimulate them at all. Do not.
You want to atrophy, you can't activate them.
I had 35-inch quads when I was bodybuilding. It took me 4 years to lose them because I didn't train legs for 4 years.
I had that problem.
Yeah, but I had a bikini athlete upper body, so it didn't work out. Men's well. Yeah, you can't even. So with my girls that had that, I say, don't do any movement, even that stimulates the quad muscle, even if it's not direct stimulation. Just so don't do any of that.
And even if it's so bad, even you might want to do barbell glute bridge instead of hip thrusts, because then you're taking the quads out of it.
I have some, let's say, some athletes as well where some girls they have a really hard time atrophying a certain muscle group because it's genetic based. Let's say some girls' upper body is just massive, right? And you want to atrophy it. And I've had them not train upper body for a year and a half, and it doesn't really reduce in size. What you need to do sometimes, it sucks, but you need to, in certain situations, go off all the PDs until your muscle completely atrophies. And then you could maybe put them back in so that you could focus on building the muscles that are weaker. But sometimes you got to come off PDs because if you're on PDs, you're going to lose muscle at a slower rate. So sometimes you have to completely come off for a long period of time until you atrophy that muscle.
Yeah. That's something the industry needs to talk about more.
Yeah.
Because the girls can't admit it. They can't say, I take Anavar.
Yeah.
There's a stigma to it. Just like no girl can admit to having a BBL. And I'm like, it's so weird because you're allowed to say I have breast implants. I take Botox. I have filler. I have lip. I have lipo. But if you say I have a BBL, you can't admit it. And other girls can admit it. So I've never had a client admit to me that they got a BBL.
We always
very few. I'll hear rumors. Someone takes Anavar, and I'm like, no, she doesn't. I'm their coach. They would tell me, and I'm like, it's a taboo. Because what happens is they say, that's all they talk about. Look at like Lance Armstrong and like Barry Bonds and stuff. They just, in bodybuilding you can talk about it, in powerlifting you can talk about it, but in bikini it's still like because the fans, the comments just become crazy. So I wish people could talk more.
All like the top Olympians, they're
right.
There's not nannies up there, and it's just the way it is. And I think as you progress and you realize at a certain point that you're going to be genetically limited to add a certain amount of muscle mass, and the PDs give you a different look, then you start realizing. But at the start, like when you're first starting competing and you want to get to that level, everyone thinks, you just assume that they're natural because you have no experience. And you're just like, oh, I can do that naturally. Like even as a bodybuilder, even as a man, where you're like, oh, and then you realize you're like, oh, this is not actually, there's a genetic limitation. There's no actual survival benefit to looking like that naturally. So your body doesn't want to get to that look naturally because it doesn't benefit you to survive. Your body doesn't care if you're a bodybuilder and you're trying to have huge glutes or delts or whatever.
Walk up a flight of stairs, you're winded. So
there's no benefit to you surviving, so your body doesn't naturally want to do this. Sometimes you're gonna have to take PDs to achieve that level, but hopefully you have supervision of someone who understands how to utilize those properly. What inspired you to focus specifically on glute building in your career?
I had no glutes. I had my back went right into my legs. My family has no glutes. And so I was like, I was in high school. I heard girls talking about glutes. They're like, let's go watch football practice. I want to stare at their butts. And I'm like, oh God, if girls care about glutes, I'm going to be a virgin for life. So I was like, my whole life I've been like this. I'm not okay. I was a teacher for 6 years.
You can't neglect their arms though. I think they care a little bit more about that maybe.
Well,
like 70-30.
But I had none. So I was like, and I thought I'd wear a pair of jeans and it would just sag. I had nothing filling out. I hate that look. And I don't have the biggest glutes now, but they're a hell of a lot bigger than they used to be. But I've always been like that. Like I would be like, when I was a high school math teacher, I was making 30 grand a year. And I'm like, some days I'd stay after school. I'd be like, I'm not okay with this. I have to make more. I can't just make 30 grand the rest of my life.
Oh, I thought you meant you were looking in the mirror at school and saying you didn't have enough glutes. You're talking about your salary. I thought you were at school like...
No, I was at school hearing girls talk about watching my friends. When we went through puberty, some of my friends just had big glutes, especially the athletes. I had none. So I look back and I go, I'm glad I didn't actually have glutes because I wouldn't have become the glute guy and I wouldn't have had the career that I had. But they did not come easy for me. I would feel everything. I'd do squats. I'd fold like an accordion and feel it all in my quads and low back. I'd do deadlifts. I'd round back because we didn't have cameras back then. You didn't know how your form looked. I'd feel it all in my low back. I would try exercise. I'd be like, God, I feel these more in my quads. I wish there was an exercise where I felt like my glutes are the limiting factor. And then in 2006, I invented hip thrust. But it wasn't like a plan to become the glute guy. It was
just
more
naturally happened that way, right?
It naturally happened. I invented the hip thrust, but also when I started training clients, I thought I'd train all male athletes. Like I was a high school teacher, and I'm like, all my guy students will want to train with me, all the football players, the basketball players, and no, it was just all my female friends and family members wanted to train with me. And I'd be like, I have like, back then I trained people out of my garage. I'm like, I've got like a power rack with all the bells and whistles, but I had like safety squat bar, reverse hyper, glute ham raise, a prowler sled that you push down the street. And they'd go, oh, I love training that way. I'd be like, okay, come train with me. Then they'd tell their friends. It was just weird. I just always attracted women clients. And then I would realize I only had back then 700 pounds, but I could train like 10 girls at a time with all my different equipment. If I trained 2 male powerlifters, I would be out of weight. So I liked it.
So yeah, even for me, like your life progresses in a certain way just based on circumstances that happen to you, right? And
we're a pinball.
As far as the question goes, is like, it asks, what inspired you to focus specifically on glute building? Yes, you are the glute guru, but you know how to train every other body part as well. Like India's coming here to train glutes. Like even Messi came here. I'm sure you're not just training glutes with them all day in the gym. You understand the biomechanics and how to do progressive overload and gain muscle mass with all other body parts as well.
That's what sucks about having a niche, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, I know a lot about all the muscles too. I've been studying this stuff my whole life.
But I only get asked best at what you do when you have a niche, right? That's why I only started focusing on coaching women, because I made men that are pro, men's physique, figure, all these categories. But I realized that if you focus on one thing, you can be the best in the world. You can't be the best in the world at 10 things. You got to really focus on one thing, and that's how you're going to really...
And that's how you'll make the most money, is by really...
the most money and have the most knowledge and be able to be the best in one thing. Totally. Like you're not saying like someone in the Olympics are not the best skier and they're not the best 100-meter dash. They're focusing on that one craft, and that's how they're going to prevail. Yeah, exactly. What is, this is a hard question, but what is a realistic amount of muscle tissue to develop in glutes per month in an improvement season?
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know the answer to that, because like,
answer that question.
Well, how would you say
how would you measure it anyway?
Well, in the research, it's measured if you do muscle thickness, it's measured in millimeters. If you do cross-sectional area, it's in centimeters squared. If it's in volume, it's cubic centimeters. And I can know like muscle thickness. I know an average muscle thickness might be like 12 centimeters or 8 centimeters. I know that cross-sectional area might be like 61 or something like that. And then like muscle volume might be, for like big bodybuilder types, it could be 1,200 cubic centimeters.
You can't answer this question generally because
I don't know. I don't have that. Yeah. We don't have MRI to look at clients.
Even if you do, it's still like, does genetics play a huge role? It's genetics, your environment, like
in Glute Lab, San Diego, the girls want to, it's like, to get your glutes up to 40 inches, then you've got a big
But that's
butt.
also like fat
hip flexors, like, so like I have
hard to measure.
Huge glutes, but it's because my hips are so wide. So you're not measuring, your circumference doesn't mean.
You can't just measure glutes.
We were looking at who has the best hip to glute,
that makes more sense.
Waist to hip ratio. And it's not always like, I have this client in San Diego, Kiana, with this round, nice butt, but she's got small glutes, but they're so round. Those are just the muscle bellies. Like, what is it about roundedness? It's the projection from it's a genetic element. Some girls are more flattened out, but they're broader, they're
longer insertion.
Yeah.
So, and
then some girls are wide and they don't have round glutes, but they have more glute mass. It's a stronger muscle. So I came up with tiny but mighty for my girls who don't have 40-inch glutes. Maybe they've got 34, but they're proud of it because they're so strong. But yeah, I don't know. I've never looked at,
and
it's not like
glutes.
We don't have MRIs. We don't have ultrasound units. We have DEXA, but that doesn't tell you. It tells you region specific, but it's like percentages. You don't know what. I can't be like, it's reasonable to put 1 inch around your glutes because it depends if you're gaining weight or maintaining
tissue. But also, don't focus on how much muscle you can build in that certain area because bigger doesn't necessarily mean better. We've seen like some glutes where are not very aesthetically pleasing, but they have a lot of muscle on it versus girls, like you mentioned your client before, where there's a lot of projection and roundness, and that's a lot better and more aesthetic than just overall mass and size. What is Booty by Bret, and is it good for bikini competitors?
Yeah, that's my program it's like a 3-day per week program, but you can modify it to your liking. That's what made me all my money was Booty by Bret. Yeah. I had a client that said, Bret, why are you doing all these things? You don't even have a flagship glute program, and you're the glute expert. You're the world's glute expert. I go, I have Strong by Bret. She goes, that sounds like powerlifting. I don't want to do Strong by Bret. I want to do glutes by Bret. I go, well, I trademarked Booty by Bret. I never used it. She goes, call it Booty by Bret and actually promote it. That was like 2019. I did what she said, and I went from like 1,200 members to like 3,000 to 5,000, and it got up to, my best ever was 12,700 members.
Explain what it is exactly. So it's
an online subscription site, and it's you spend $30 a month. But what's so cool about it is it's really good. I fly to San Diego every month and I film it, and it's up to date with my current knowledge. But I like to film it in San Diego Glute Lab just for consistency. But it's always up to date with the latest things we're doing. So you tell me you want India's upper glutes to be bigger. So I start training her doing 2 abduction movements per day. So then I'm like, wow, that worked well. India's going, Mike, I've never had this. So I trickle that into Booty by Bret. So it's always cutting edge for what we're doing here. And so it's a good program because it also has a Facebook community with 13,000 members or something. So there's a big community, but that's my main focus.
And the same as you, I make these documents and I'm like, oh, this is so perfect. And then I have a different idea and I'm like, I gotta change it. Yeah, you always want to keep updating and keep getting, but that's how you continue getting better and progressing. And that's how your business grows too. And that's how you continue to be the best at what you do.
I think that's what my clients like is it's not, I didn't make an app, film every exercise once, and then
good luck. Yeah.
Well, it's like this month's workout, squats, and it's linked to a prior video I filmed. I still film it and I change it up. Yeah. So yeah, it is great for bikini competitors.
Updated with all of like the knowledge that you're learning right as you be a trainer.
And it's great for bikini competitors.
Which is the correct position of back, legs, feet, head, and chin when hip thrusting?
In general, you want a vertical shin when you're at lockout. You don't want your feet too far away or too close. But then it's different for rotisserie hip thrust because you end up having an angle, like an obtuse angle. In general, you want a fairly right angle. If you're hip thrusting off a bench, off the ground, you want a vertical shin at lockout. The chin, if you're doing hinge method, it's mostly up. If you're doing scoop method, it's mostly forward. It just depends. Or you
depends on your machine too, or if the pad's able to rotate as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then
I tried the Atlantic hip thrust machine. I hate that damn thing. Atlantis hip thrust. Yeah, they had that at my gym in Montreal. I hate that.
There's so many that just don't. And most of them, like a third of people will like them.
Exactly, because it doesn't adapt to your body, so it's only good for a set amount of people. For me, it doesn't work at all with the length of my limbs.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I went to Pure Muscle, have you ever seen Pure Muscle in Toronto? Oh my God. You would love it. It's built with, it's like this, but like for all the muscle groups, right? So you can tell it was made with love. It's not from a gym owner. It's like bodybuilders made this, and they have like 7 or 8 different like seated leg curl machines, 28 different chest press machines. Oh my God. This thing is like the gym goer's playground.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You can say 20 hours and you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you can go there and you can do different workouts every single day with different exercises for a year, and you can never even try every machine. You should visit once, you'll fall in love with it.
What city?
Toronto, yes, in Toronto. I don't live there. I just went there with Issa for 8 days, but oh my God, this gym it's art. It's true art, and you can see it's made with love. It's unbelievable. Would you suggest it's better to stick with one training program when building your glutes or moving between phases of accumulation / intensification? I think we covered this a little bit before, but
we didn't. We touched upon that, but we didn't cover this specific question. Is great. I don't do this, but I think it's a great idea, and it's something that makes sense. Sometimes, when I'm really doing, because you get to a point with hip thrusts. I'll take my client Dre for example. Dre weighs 110 pounds.
She's making some graphic design for me right now. I actually just hired her.
Okay. She's so strong. And she doesn't have the biggest glutes, but they look great on stage. She has great genetics. Like they insert. But anyway, she's so strong pound for pound. She's hit 315 for 20 on the Thruster Pro. She's hit 405 for 12. She's hit 495 for 5. And then she also does rotisserie. But it's like you get to a point where you've set these. I know this was me in 2015. I got up to an 800-pound hip thrust, but I hit barbell. With the barbell, I did 405 for 20, 495 for 15, 585 for 10, 675 for 5, 725 for 2, and then 800 for 1.
429 pounds for
I get to a point where like, I don't know what to try to beat. I don't want to try to go for 495 for 16. I don't want to go for you get so daunting. So then I think it's a good period of time, a good idea to once you get so strong at all your PRs, you're really good at pushing one set hard. Start focusing on volume PRs. It's okay. Yes, I've done, for me with my best deadlift ever was 605 for 5. What could I get for 4 sets of 5 though? There's no way I could get 605 for 4 sets of 5. But if I start out, I'd probably go 515, see if I could get 4 sets of 5, then try to build up volume and just have volume PRs or accumulate the ability, because it's going to have different neuromuscular adaptations. You're going to have more adaptations that deal with volume, like the ability to push multiple sets. Maybe you build up more mitochondria, more sarcoplasm, something like that, and like the organelles and the fluid inside. And then when you switch to more, maybe you get more myofibrillar adaptations or like sarcomeric proteins. It's just a theory, but I think you should switch phases. That's worthy of experimenting from time to time, and it certainly changes it up and breaks the monotony. I do think that's a valid concept. We just don't do it that much because I tend to keep volume and effort the same month to month.
Yeah, but as we said before, yeah, exactly. But also you can incorporate different exercises, we said before, and different intensifiers to finish your reps.
Yeah.
You can have the same type of, there's only so many movements you can do for glutes. So you can change it up a little bit, it's not going to hurt. But if you're very limited on exercises, let's say you don't have all the exercises, all the machines you have here, you can find different ways to progress on one certain movement, right? Like you just said, with either the intensity or the amount of repetitions you're doing, or different measures of progress, right? Please elaborate on how, if at all, foot pressure influences glute engagement when doing hip thrusts, i.e. pressing through heels or pressing through toes versus pressing through the whole foot.
All right, when you do hip thrusts, you don't want to press through your toes. That you could just feel it decreases glute activation. You want to press through your heels, but you can either let your toes come up, and it's funny, when I do band hip thrusts, my toes come up. When I do barbell hip thrusts, my toes stay down. But I'm trying to push through the heel, but you could also just push through your whole foot. Everything's fine except, all right, the only thing that's not okay is pushing through your toes or using Olympic shoes. You don't want to use Olympic shoes and be slanted down. That increases quad activity. But all these three other things are fine. Well, I'll give you 4 options that are fine. Pushing through the whole foot, aiming to push through the heels, dorsiflexing and lifting the toes up and pushing through the heels, or using a wedge with your toes elevated. All 4 of those are fine.
I would say that a safe bet would be just pushing through heels for the average person.
Yes.
And you can, that's like the safest bet. You're going to be incorporating your glutes.
Try to push through the heels, but keep your feet down. That's
exactly,
fine.
yeah. And then you can incorporate these other things, but
it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Different cardio. I talked about this with you, actually. I messaged you and I said, hey, Bret, is there any studies that demonstrate which different methods of cardio incorporate more quads or more glutes, or
which would grow your glutes, or which would atrophy them?
So let's say I had a client that had bigger quads. Like, what would be the best cardio machine to utilize if I want to atrophy their quads, for example?
So if you're trying to atrophy your quads, theoretically, jogging would be the best way to atrophy them. But this is based on a review paper that there's conflicting results, but this review paper showed that jogging actually, it's like too much eccentric absorption. It's too much, and it ends up leading to, maybe it's a little too much muscle damage. It's not enough hypertrophy stimulus, and it creates more of a negative than a positive, and it will lead to quad atrophy. They didn't measure glutes. Will it lead to glute atrophy too? I think so. But cycling always builds the quads. And you can do, even if you do weight training and cycling ends up being...
All the cyclers have huge quads.
Yeah, cycling is synergistic. So if you think about it, cycling is like concentric. It's just pushing. It doesn't have that eccentric component that jogging does. And it gets high level of muscle activation in the quads, and it's a lot of metabolic stress. You get a pump, you feel the burn. All things that would theoretically be good for quad growth. What about glute growth, though? Is there something like cycling for the glutes that builds your glutes well, where you feel a burn in your glutes? I do think incline walking on a treadmill is probably the best. Yeah. I think it's better than Stairmaster, Stair-Stepper, because I think Stairmaster, Stair-Stepper is a little too intense. It's hard. But walking on an incline, you get a burn, you can feel the glutes working, but it's not too intense. It's mostly concentric. Walking uphill is mostly concentric. Walking downhill is more eccentric for the quads. Yeah. But anyway, if I had to guess, I would say uphill walking is best for glutes. I don't like sprinting. It's too injurious. Bodybuilders don't go
on
sprinting.
Your joints. Exactly.
They don't do plyos. They don't sprint.
That's when you eat
You get these people that want to be jack of all trades.
It's hard to recover too.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
If I go sprinting, like the last time I tried sprinting was out of nowhere, just like I'm on the beach.
Yeah.
My twin brother and my niece were like, we're faster than you. And I'm like, no, I'm faster than you. We were like dead even. And I was just like too stubborn. I'm like, no. The last like couple strides, I inched ahead. And then I strained both hamstrings. But I could strain a calf, a hip flexor. You're not prepared for that activity. That's a high load endeavor.
Different type of training.
It's a different type of training. So when you're young, you can do that. When you're the more experience you get, it's not worth the risk. If you want to do stuff like that, you got to prepare, but know that it'll probably interfere.
I don't actually make any of my clients do HIIT training.
Yeah.
At all, because it's not really beneficial, and none of you don't see bodybuilders doing HIIT training either. For the goal,
safe.
Yes,
keep it safe.
Yes, avoid injuries.
Low impact, exactly.
Just to conclude that, what exercise would you say, or sorry, what
jogging would probably atrophy the muscles theoretically, but then
straight jogging,
there's
right?
Conflicting research on that. I don't want to. If you love jogging, don't ever do away with something completely. If you really love it and it's going to help you, then just try to minimize it. Like I have people go, well, I want to train for a half marathon. Can I keep my glutes? And I'm like, okay. A half marathon.
I get this question, Bret. I get this question all the time because I have athletes that are in the army too. They're like, listen, I got to do this like
Yeah.
20-mile run 3 times a week. I'm like, listen, do it, but it's counterproductive towards our goal. Like
Yeah.
that's just the reality of the
Yeah.
situation. I'm like, it's not, you can't be a marathon runner and a professional
Yeah.
bodybuilder at the same time.
Right.
Conflicting goals.
So try to do the
Exactly.
minimum amount of
Yeah.
training and have a lot of your training being shorter. If you were trying to run a half marathon, maybe it's 13 miles. I don't know. Is a marathon 26 miles?
So like I know what I don't know. I never ran a marathon in my life.
Say it's 13 miles. I don't know. I can't remember. But a lot of your training should be like 5 to 6 miles and not 13. You don't need to run the half marathon to be good at it. You don't do it to be your best at it. Do it to maintain your glutes while you can do this endeavor and then be done with
So
it.
incline treadmill for basically preserving your glute muscle, right?
Yeah.
But how about the stairs? Would you say that atrophies quads or that help build quads?
Okay, if you train glutes 1 day a week, no. But if you train glutes 3 times a week and you're doing stairs all the time, then you go to do squats. Are you going to be that strong at them? Or is it going to interfere with your hip thrust? I don't know.
It's hard.
I don't want to be because we had a lot of people, the pendulum's gone both ways. It was like, don't do this interference effect. This happens a lot in research. The first paper that was ever conducted was this Hickson, 1980 or 90 or something. Hickson showed this huge interference effect, and that's how it became popularized. Just like the first study on heavy loads versus light loads was this Campos study. It showed heavy loads were way better than light loads, and then no paper ever showed those same results. Like 25 subsequent papers all showed that they were equal. Since that first Hickson paper, we have not shown the interference effect to be as dramatic as he did. It's like you can do cardio still and see gains, but just be smart about it. You got to be wise. You're going to see the best results if you have energy when you lift weights. So plan your day to lift weights when you have the most energy. If you are the type that has the most energy at 7 a.m., lift weights then. If it's 10 a.m. or noon, if it's 6 p.m., make sure you're well fed. Eat the foods that agree with you so you don't feel bloated or gassy. Eat the foods that make you feel, and then prioritize it. And then don't be too stressed out where you are like, you have 80 things on your mind. Like people forget that. You got to prioritize it in order to give yourself the best chance to gain strength and set PRs and utilize progressive overload.
So yeah, if you feel like you're really not recovering by doing the Stairmaster, maybe don't utilize that.
Don't go do Stairmaster and then go right into your weight training. Don't do it before your session.
Let's get into that for 2 seconds. What I typically do with my athletes, let's say like someone has to do 2 hours of cardio, right? On a Stairmaster, right? Because you have to burn an X amount of calories.
Yeah, towards the end of prep, if you got 2 hour cardio.
That would take 2 hours on the stairs or an hour and a half on the stairs versus the 4 hours on the treadmill. Do the stairs. Who has time to sit 4 hours on a treadmill, right? There's certain situations.
Agree with those
So I never use the heart rate calculator and the calorie on the machines. So what my athletes do is buy like hopefully an Apple Watch, and they'll measure on that same unit of measurement from all of the machines, because that's where you're going to get an accurate assessment.
Right.
So I never make them use a machine. It's useless because it's based on 180-pound male. Use the Apple Watch to be a lot more accurate, and then you can see, okay, they burn 1,000 calories on a Stairmaster takes me 95 minutes versus the treadmill takes me 3.5 hours. I don't have 3.5 hours. I'll get it done on the Stairmaster. But that's all about using logic as well, you know? Yeah, I never agree with those machines because they're inconsistent from machine to machine, from gym to gym. And as far as what you're saying,
but at that point, you're not building glutes at all.
Yeah, you're trying to maintain at that point.
You're trying to maintain, and then you're in, So
let's say for the off season, right? Like, I'm not going to make too many girls that do 2 hours of Stairmaster. You don't have to do that.
No,
so use like,
little cardio as possible in the off season.
Just stay in a relatively lean state, right? So I would make them maybe ones that have really like weak quads. I'll make them do the cycling, or ones that have like balanced bodies and they want to grow the glutes. I'll make them do incline tread. Also, it's a lot easier on your joints than the Stairmaster. But there's sometimes in prep where they have to get a lot of cardio done. Do the Stairmaster because it's very hard to do. You're going to burn the most calories and it's the most efficient to do.
Yeah.
So
if you got to lose the weight, you got to lose the weight.
What are you
have clients that have things didn't go according to plan, and they need to lose 4 pounds in the last week. That happens. You got to,
So this is a question that we actually got a lot of likes on. How do you deal with competitors with glutes that seem to have loose skin from aging? Any suggestions other than surgery? So I'll get into this 2 seconds. I deal with it all the time. All of it is a lack of volume and skin elasticity. As you age, your skin's going to lose elasticity and you're going to have that loose skin. I lost 140 pounds before, and I had loose skin at 21 years old, a little bit on my stomach, and I had to get surgically removed. There's not really any creams or any solutions or anything that's going to work besides surgery. And sometimes the surgery is not going to be a miraculous or flawless result. So you either have to fill that volume with glute muscle, or yeah, with glute muscle or wherever you have saggy skin, or you need to get surgery to take off the skin. There's really no other solution, and that's just the way it is. And if you're 70 years old, are you really going to grow enough glutes to counteract the saggy skin to get like stage lean? Probably not. And the thing is, like, when you're in off season, you might not have saggy skin because the volume is filled up with a bit of fat too. When you get stage lean, you're reducing the volume, so there's more room for your skin to sag. So there's not really.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
It's like the things to prevent it would be try to lose weight gradually. But if you have the saggy skin, you probably lost a lot of weight very rapidly. And then what do? You got to gain weight back to put volume in that area. But you're not going to gain it. Well, in the stomach, you're not going to gain volume back in the stomach.
Yeah, exactly.
That's counterproductive.
Yeah.
In the glutes, can you ever gain as much glute volume to then
get that
skin, to get the skin stretched to where it's not sagging? Probably not. So are there any tricks? Are there creams and things like that? I don't think there's anything that effective.
Not that would be that
surgery,
extreme.
and then exactly.
Yeah,
I wish I had tricks.
And it's a lot of it is genetic too. Like us white people have the worst skin. So I noticed that in my clients that are white and older women typically have the loosest like skin or worse skin elasticity. And the other clients, the best skin and the thickness is typically my Asian clients, and they can be like 55 years old and have super tight skin. Yeah. So it's a very big genetic component in how your skin is. I've
never studied that. I'm sure
it's 100%. Yeah. But also the ones that you'll see, the white clients with the thinner skin have a lot easier time leaning down for some reason than the Asian clients that are maybe 50 years old that had very thick skin. So they're able to lean down. You should do it. You should look into this because it's a thing for sure. But yeah, so you have to increase the volume, but is it enough where you're going to get enough muscle mass when you're stage lean to...
Yeah, so you might be like, okay, yeah, I got down to 130 pounds, but now I have all this skin. I don't want to be 230. I lost 100 pounds, but maybe you do feel your best at 150, having a little more fat, but then filling it out more.
For competition shape, there's no solution that you get surgery, but even like getting surgery on your glutes, it's tough, and it's not a common occurrence. If you have loose skin on your adductors or like your hamstrings area, I think it's weird because I talked to my plastic surgeon friends, and there should be more non-invasive surgeries that actually can fix this at this point because we have so much technology, but there's really not much. It's all invasive surgery, and it's like they have these laser bullshits and the PRP and this. It's not going to fix your loose skin if you have a reasonably extreme case. Yeah. If you have a very minor, maybe you can do PRP, but if it's an age issue and that skin issue, that sag, you're not going to fix unless you fill the volume up or get surgery. Yeah. A couple more questions. Many recent muscle building studies show that overloading the stretch position is superior to contracting the contraction position, yet there are so many pros that focus on the squeeze, hold the contraction for a couple seconds, incorporate bands, and perform exercises that overload the contraction. Explain why. I replied to this comment, I said, why not do both?
But we talked all about this.
Yeah.
First of all, do both, but also with the glutes, that research is equivocal. There's a study, there's a Kubo study his name's Kubo, the researcher, looking at squat depth that shows that deep squats were better than quarter or half squats. Okay, of course they are. But it didn't look at parallel versus deep. Mm-hmm. And then there's another study for
development
for glute. Well, they looked at quads too, but for glutes, the glutes got way better development going deep.
So you're stretching deeper,
Yeah, but like it didn't look at parallel versus deep. And then there's the pocket study that showed that squats and hip thrusts tied. So they might move you through a similar range. Squats a little deeper, but squats are harder in the deep position. Hip thrusts are harder in the lockout. They tied. There's two more. There's a conference abstract that hasn't been published, and there's print that hasn't been published. So those aren't even evidence yet. But I would say right now, it's not even proven. There's not a lot of evidence supporting that the glutes respond better to bigger stretch. But why wouldn't you do both? But just listen to this whole podcast, and you'll get a lot of insight.
You're not going to be just doing short ROM on all these exercises. Do the full range of motion, contracting the top.
These girls that you see squeezing the top. I train all the influencers in Miami. They're all doing both.
Yes, exactly.
They do their squats, they do their lunges, they do their sumo.
But as far as the range of motion, they're doing
the stretch, and they're all doing the squeeze stuff too.
Exactly, it's the same thing. Yeah. That's why I answered that question. Like, you don't need to do one or the other. Do both. Yes. Two more questions. I wanted to know what were Bret's most significant findings from his research on glute training.
That Plotkin study was probably the most important. I've had two training studies that I've been involved in that were original research that I'm proud of, but there's one line of research that I didn't publish It was an EMG experiment, and people bash EMG for a good reason. It doesn't predict hypertrophy, but in this situation, surface EMG is perfect, because what I did was I looked at 13 of my glute squad members. I had them get down to the bottom of the squat, loaded too heavy, and I had them pushing as hard as they can upwards, because there's a lot of research showing that in a deep squat, the glutes shut off. It's almost like this myoelectrical silence. It happens with the erectors. When you round the back, it's called the lumbar flexion relaxation phenomenon. The electrical activity ceases to that muscle, or it minimizes. In the deep squat, the glutes have very low activity. That's not the case with quads, but with the glutes it is. What I had them do is push up at the bottom of a squat or push out against two bottoms.
Yeah.
They push out as hard as they can. When you're in deep hip flexion, the glutes activate more pushing out than pushing up. So is that one reason why you're not going to see better results going deeper past a certain point? Should we be using more bands in a deep hip flexion? Should we be doing, what implications does that have? We don't know yet, but it's a very interesting finding. I would love to do a training study, because I think it's funny, because bands have been bashed, but that activates the glutes greater in that deep stretch position, pushing out than pushing up.
Feel it too. Just use your logic, right? Too. If you're doing the exercise, have the bands around you to add resistance and push a little bit outwards, and you can feel the tension on your glutes more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that have any implications, or it just, to me, I think that there's something to that. So that's a line of research I'd like to explore over time.
Okay. And the last question, just quickly speak about your glute ebook. Or you have a couple, or you just have one?
No, I have Glute Lab, the book. That's a book, but I love that book. It's a classic. I do need to update it. I wrote that in 2019, so we're always look at how different my methods are. Look at the new machines. Look at the new research we've been talking about. Look at the new
that glute book is still very relevant. That has a lot of good.
It's a classic, and it's so high quality. I wrote it with my friend Glenn Cordoza. It's a good. He does it well, and for Victory Bout, they do books well, and so you'd like to have it on your coffee table. So and it has programs in it if you just want to spend. It's $30 on Amazon. But my main, it's like I've got my main two money. I make most of my money through Booty by Bret, and then I've got BC Strength. We sell these plates, we sell that T-bow, we sell the blocks, we sell the Thruster Pro, we sell the thrusters, the 45-degree hyper, the Nordic hemp curl, ankle cut, like all this stuff I've shown you in here. We use a ton of it, and I'm proud of it, because when I make equipment, I test it with like all my squad in San Diego and in Florida. I test it first
before releasing it out.
Yeah, so it's so frustrating for women who are 4'11", 5 foot, 5'1", 5'2". I know 4'11" is like rare, but I do have a couple clients who've been 4'11", but I've got plenty that are 5'2". These 5'2" girls get on the hip thruster machines that these stupid male manufacturers make. Like,
I hate that.
They can't even come close. Yeah. They're like, they're doing a straight-legged hip thrust. Their knee angle is obtuse. They feel it in their hamstrings. They can't get a good range.
You can't move the plate at the top, the foot thing at the bottom, and the bar. I'm like,
it's terrible.
Made for one type of person.
It's made for guys my size, 6'4". It's made for guys my size. I do it, and I'm like, this feels good. It's like a guy my size went, this feels good. Let's move to production without ever testing it on a shorter woman. And I do test it on shorter women, and I test it on a variety of people, and I'm very proud of my products. I don't mark them up that much. My prices aren't outrageous, so I'm very proud of that.
Like, just for example, right? Obviously, we're in a business to make money as well. We run companies, but you train these girls how many times a week for free at the gym, right? They help you out by testing your equipment and stuff too, and you train, in return you train them for free and get like feedback. And it's a
I've been very fortunate with Booty by Bret. Well, I was a teacher for 6 years, making no money. I made $30,000 a year. So I said, how can I help people out? How can I give back to my community? I'm not going to mark up BC Strength products that much. I'm not going to charge. My team is always annoyed because I'll be like, that T-bell right there, Jim, what does it look like? It should be about $50. But it's no, we need to sell it for, I can't remember if we sell for 60 or 70, but they'll be like, no, Brett, it cost us this. We need to mark it up more. And I'm like, no, it looks like it'd be this. Let's just sell it for this. Let's not make a lot of profit on it.
You're focused more on like the volume so that you can reduce the price, right?
I don't have to make money. I make so much money with Booty, but I don't have to kill it with BC Strength quite as much. I don't have to charge all my clients for training. I live in expensive cities. San Diego's super expensive. Miami's super expensive. So I can help these girls. We help each other out. I don't have to charge. I don't have to make a profit through every single endeavor I do.
And in return, also, you get the feedback from these girls coming here. You learn from them too.
I learn so much. I get to experiment every day.
I actually have a glute ebook too. I think I released it at the start of this year in around March or April, and it's 87 pages long. And I put 100 hours into it just making it after all the knowledge I've built over. I don't have a PhD like you, but just based off my practice and making so many bikini pros and Olympians, I've learned so much through that endeavor, right? Because you learn a lot through that. And it explains basically almost every exercise you can do for the 3 glute muscles. And there's 50 different workouts in it too that you can change things around and really understand. It's made for beginners and top Olympians too. Everyone that's purchased it or utilized it has benefited from it regardless of the level. So it's released in English right now. We just made a French version, a Portuguese version, a Spanish version, and 2 different Chinese dialects too. And maybe you can start doing that too, because I like Issa Bashini.
My company doesn't like to do translations because you may never make that much money off of them.
Yeah, but I say Issa Bashini, right? She has a huge fan base, and they all want to understand. Yeah. They want the glute book.
Especially the Spanish speaking country. So they'll come after me, and they're like, "How come you haven't translated this?" But my publishing company won't do it. But for an ebook, it's a no-brainer.
But to make the whole book, the ebook, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just get this all translated in all these different languages? It's going to be 5 different languages, and then more people can utilize it and benefit from it.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So, Bret, thank you very much for your time on the Alice podcast. And I hope the audience learned a lot from you.
Yeah.
So
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No problem. We'll do this another time as well.
Yep.
Thank you.